It's Friday, August 4th, 2023. Okay, we actually have, well, we'll do our shill segment, but there's actually promotional stuff involved this time. So, let's see.
Promotional stuff.
Yeah, stuff. There's things are happening, man. So, just in terms of late nights, not that exciting, sorry. Patreon.com, I mean, I don't want to it's not like the show is suddenly transforming.
What would be exciting? What would be an exciting level of promotion?
I don't know. If I was interviewing Katsuhiro Otomo, that would be something where I'd be like, all right, you don't even have to bother listening to anything else for a month because I'm talking to one of the greatest artists that's ever lived. Yeah, whatever. Something on that caliber. Oh, William Gibson has decided to come on and talk to us about Neuromancer because he's completely, utterly bored and has no one else left to talk to because the earth is a cinder.
Bored as hell, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, or Alan Moore has decided that he wants to take us through how vocabulary is magic. That's something where I'd be like, okay.
That would be right? A hell of a trip, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. Yes. So nothing of that caliber. Let me bring the expectation levels down, but we'll get to that in a second. Patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare. If you want to support the show there, go to the show homepage and look for the squares arranged on the right-hand side, and there you will find a PayPal link if you want to donate that way. You will find a link that looks like a little book that will take you to Lando's Amazon author page. The skull will take you to my link tree. And that's it for and Ozone, the code, OZONE, as far as I'm aware, still will get you 2 months free on Libsyn if you want to try out the whole podcasting thing. Don't get into it for the money. Moving on, promotion-wise, in August there is a 2-part late night coming. That one is with Jason Howell from Twit.tv, one of the hosts and producers over there. Where we talk about podcasting in general, AI, I don't like that term for it, music, that type of stuff. And then in September, Dr. Doug Bielmeyer will be on for a one longer late night. And I believe I have one lined up for October as well, pretty sure. Actually, I think I have the rest of the year. So I think there will be late nights for every month of the remainder of the year. So haven't done that many in a row in a while, but it's been a good bumper crop of people having availability and me being able to do those shows. So look forward to those. And I think that was the promotional segment. So that was where I was like, oh yeah, that's something different because I haven't had late nights in a row like that in quite a while. So back half of the year looking very good late night wise from August on. And that was my promotional bit. So no William Gibson, no Alan Moore, not yet. To be fair,
we've also never tried to contact them.
No, but that's one of those things where in the back of my head.
Yeah.
I never have my one little thing is, okay, because I talk to people who are slightly up a little bit of a rung every time I feel like. I'm like, okay, that's a very slow staircase. Can that staircase get high enough before these people die? Probably not. But there could be a day where, I could reach out and the name wouldn't be, because that's already happened sort of, where somebody talked to somebody else who was on and said, oh yeah, it's a fun guy to talk to. And that's why I think this person came on. So there is that kind of thing.
That's great.
So, like I said, we're quite a ways away from somebody like Alan Moore or anything like that. But that is the one thing where I'm like, well, if your name gets around enough and it's not on the avoid list, then perhaps someday there could be an intersection. If I say the words Alan Moore interview and they turn into magic, maybe he'll show up. Type of thing. I'll try it.
I'd love to be convinced.
Yeah, I don't know. I made a bunch of weird hand movements when I did it. Maybe that's the key. Maybe I accidentally invoked, I don't know, something. So, yeah. Did you say you had something to open with or no?
I wanted to talk about Dead Island 2.
Oh, good idea.
Because we haven't spoken about it yet.
We haven't. No.
And now
those videos, by the way, will, as of this week, the first one is out. I sent Lando the intro to it, which I was very proud of.
Well, your intro is great. I don't know how entertaining it is to watch us play them.
I don't care.
You know what? I don't understand. I accept the fact, but I just don't understand it.
I skimmed through them.
Yeah.
They are entertaining. It's hard to explain it, but there is. Even I was kind of like, oh yeah, because what I usually do is I skim through them just to make sure that you didn't say something of a very personal nature or that there weren't any audio dropouts.
I try to pocket that all in one area because I know you like to record. So I try to keep all our personal conversations at one point in the night and then kind of let it go from there on.
Yeah, and that generally works. Yeah. But like I said, that's usually what I'm skimming through for. Yeah. But in that one I kind of found myself stopping and watching what we were doing. Oh, because when the Ricky and Roxy thing happened, I told you I rewatched that whole segment. Because when she falls off the counter and he's going on and we're talking about his thong and all that stuff, that is funny. That stuff's funny. And it is entertaining to watch us drop kicking zombies and being thrilled about the fact that, their skin's boiling off and that type of thing. So there is an entertainment to it.
Well, I'll admit that when we started, I was apprehensive.
Dubious, right?
Well, I was apprehensive of Dead Island 2 because honestly, so what was the one we played? Dying Light. Dying Light 1 was interesting, but I got overgored by the game. They were I think the prison was the pinnacle for me. They were like, it's so gory. Yeah, look at all this gore. And I was just like, this is unnecessary. Like, it's one thing, the was it the World War II zombie game we played?
Oh, Zombie Army.
Zombie Army.
Yeah.
I don't mind the Zombie Army games because those get so absurd. Like you're fighting magic zombie Hitler. Like it's so absurd that there's no point in realism. You know what I mean? Like the game's not trying at this point. It's just having fun.
Sure.
Whereas with the Dying Light game, they were like, oh no, imagine if there was a zombie outbreak and it's like a disease and it's like a virus and then what would it be like? And the game takes itself very seriously. Yeah. What saves Dying Light was the parkour because you were like Batman, especially when you got the grapple hook. Even though the night thing was such a piece of shit, I hate that aspect of it. Where they're like, at night, the super, zombies come out. And I'm like, you know what? Like, and they made it about UV and like it started to like think of like vampirism a little bit. You know what I mean? And everybody was infected and everybody had to take medication and, and I appreciate they tried to do something different. And the parkour was fun once you got a sense of it. But like they just did that overly unnecessary gore thing and the game was like grim. It was very grim. And then when they did the add-on was out of the city and it got annoying because in the city area if you fell off a building you could immediately climb back up and you enjoyed running from one side of the city to the other because you were like fucking Batman with your grappling hook. Whereas in the add-on, because you're out in the countryside, you could find yourself running forever. Just running and running and running. And then the ending, the final ending of the game was such a fucking bummer of a decision.
Yeah.
Where it was like either you bomb yourself and everybody. So basically either you kill everybody or you accept that you're all going to evolve into creatures that are human during the day and then like mindless killers at night, right? Which again, back with like the weird vampirism. It was such a bummer of an ending for a game that like at times was pretty ridiculous. Yeah. Especially like, so I didn't like that. And then when we did the second one, it seemed to be more of the same shit until they finally pissed you off, and then both of us were like, we're good.
Yeah.
And we walked away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So when you said, oh, let's do another zombie game, my brain was kind of like, oh, God, another zombie game. But I will admit, Dying Light 2 has won me over. They are not... even though they're set in a world where there's a zombie outbreak and there are moments of realism, there's also a heavy draping of absurdity.
Well, let's put it this way. They didn't have it where, what was it, that we had to kill the dog for the kids? Like all that crap that the second one did?
Yeah, like they were like
getting
intentional.
Yeah, it never gets that. I mean, there's parts that are supposed to be serious, but they're never
in Dying Light,
serious.
It's perfectly, in Dying Light 1, when we did the add-on, there was that guy who was like taking care of his son. And then you realize that he's basically been feeding people to his zombie child. And you're like, oh, okay, we went there. Okay. Whereas in this game, it's like, yeah, it gets gory and people do die. But
the
it's
thing
not...
with the son didn't bother me so much because it's such a familiar zombie idea. It's not something that seems
it's still
gratuitous compared to...
But it's still grim. I mean, it's still grim and awful.
Yeah, it's grim, because you're right.
Remember,
that game handles it more seriously.
The dog thing was grim and awful to you. The kid thing was grim and awful to me.
What I was going to say is that the first game, I think, came right up to the line of being...
Oh, and backed up a
over it. Yeah. There was, because... I do remember Dying Light would offset some of that stuff.
Well, yeah, because you had that guy who was making a horror movie in the first one.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Go kill zombies, kill them. I'm making a movie." You know, like they had these little moments, but then it's like, "Oh, now you have to knife fight to death with the girl that you dig because one of you is going to become a zombie," and it's like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" So in this game so far has been fun. There is fucked up shit going on. And I haven't put away the possibility that at the end of the game we're all gonna die. But the fact that there is a character from the first game who has shown up makes me hope that perhaps there is an opportunity that we may survive. Not to mention the fact the way this game, there's no difference between night and day. They're just fucking zombies. But I like that you have the option to play during day because honestly, it's far more enjoyable. It's sunny. You know, like, just because there would be zombies doesn't mean the sun would go away. It's still California. It's sunny. It's kind of interesting to have, like, just running around and sunny zombies. You know, the weapons are nice and ridiculous. It's like, you know, I found a sword and I've put a flamethrower on it. And, you know, like, the modding is hilarious. And to some degree, there's a lot of just kicking, punching, and stabbing going on. It's not getting... that complex. Like there are powers that get layered on, but at the end of the day, if you just want to kick the shit out of a bunch of zombies, you could conceivably just kick your way through this game.
Sure.
Right? And the story doesn't demand a lot. Like, you know, people are trying to survive. People are trying to get out. People are trying to figure out what's going on. And I like the fact that the main character, or the main characters, because there's two of us, are immune. We are immune to zombie bites, and so far the general idea is trying to figure out how to synthesize your blood into some kind of cure, so that you can, you know, nobody has to worry about an outbreak. They'll be vaccinated. Which, by the way, I do find it hilarious because we were joking during was it lockdown? Remember we were joking around about if there was a zombie outbreak, people would be like, I don't believe it's fake news. There's no zombies, right? Yeah. And this whole game is basically hinging on vaccination. That's hilarious. But there's been a lot of interesting characters, a lot of amusing characters, people that we dislike, people that we find quite funny. Even when they seem annoying at first, because the artist character Francesca, you hated her, but then as soon as she started,
but the more she went over the top, the more she grew on me. I went, she was just, this has gone through and to the other side.
Like you'd be there using her workbench to like fix your weapon, and you just suddenly hear someone in the background be like, the art.
If I had known this was going to be a discussion point, I would have gotten those sound clips.
I
would be playing them. I absolutely would have. I did not realize because I have a soundboard now, so I could do that, but I don't have it.
Yeah, just the moaning in the background.
I wish I
The
did.
spark of my genius. Oh. You know what she
So
reminds
great.
me of? She reminds me of the mom from Beetlejuice.
Yeah, Delia.
Yeah, Delia.
Delia, you are a flake. You've always been a flake. If you want to frighten people, do it with your art.
Yes, very much so. So, and like, we're fighting through, and it's Hollywood. You're fighting through the movie sets. Like, the game knows its balance of like violence and goriness, but also not taking that too seriously. It's a zombie fighting game, and I enjoy that, and I enjoy the level of detail, because like, I'm going to be doing, a remodel of my kitchen because our house is not great. It's part of the reason it's a fixer upper, and we were doing design work, and at one point we walked into a house in that game, and there was the kitchen that I was like, we had done like a scan of the kitchen that we were going to try to build, and there was the kitchen in the game. And I was
it is in one of the videos. You will all hear and see that if you watch the videos. One of those has it where you said that.
I'm like, oh my god, this is the kitchen that we're going to build.
Yeah.
And then I killed some zombies, and I took a picture and showed my wife, and she laughed about it too. And so like the level of detail is good. The characters are unique enough. I mean, you have an angry punk rocker, and I have like I essentially am playing Michelle Rodriguez,
pretty much
from Fast and the Furious, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, it makes me curious about playing the other characters, because wanting to know kind of like what their take on things is, because they are different.
Yeah, I will admit, I am kind of curious what their interactions would be. You're right. I am, in a way I didn't expect to be, somewhat curious about how the dialogue would be.
Yeah. Right? So, like, that's the thing. I am surprised and entertained with Dead Island 2. I thought it was going to be a slog. I thought it was going to be annoying and depressing. And it's actually been a remarkable amount of fun. Like, I've actually looked forward to running around. I mean, the drop kicking really is like the thing.
Well, here's the funny bit too. When I first, I had zero interest in this game when they first said it was coming out, zero, because I was kind of past that too. But then the reviews I read, and this is what's interesting about reviews, what many people were saying was a detrimental thing, I knew would be a plus for us, where they were saying the story is really shallow and silly. They don't actually get into the depth of what's happening. Like, that works for me, because then it's mindless.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
A lot of people are complaining. It's just mindless zombie killing. I'm like, I'm okay with that. That's good. I'm good. Thank you. I will purchase this now.
Listen, sometimes that's what you need.
Well, and I knew where you were with your house construction things. I'm like, he's going to just want to be able to brutalize things. So that's fine. This game doesn't ask you to do anything more than keep kicking and slicing limbs off of mindless creatures.
Yeah,
and
I do like that the combat forces you to maneuver. Like, you can't. So like, you got a sniper rifle, right? And Joe loved his sniper rifle. There's actually a really great sequence where we were fighting our way down like a tunnel, and Joe is in the background with a sniper rifle, and I was in the front with a sword, and we were like slowly fighting our way down. But here's the thing: ammo isn't unlimited, and zombies can get past your shooting. So you've always got to be ready to kind of shift your tactics, because no tactic is foolproof. And I like that.
Yeah, you can't just hack and slash forever either, because you have stamina.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, you could kick your way through the game. You could, right?
No, but even that is affected by stamina, because remember, you can't drop kick.
Well, you can't drop kick. No, what I mean is, like, you could literally just kick people. Like, just kick them.
You could. If you just want to drop kick, I'm pretty sure you could drop kick and stomp the whole way, sure.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, if someone comes at you, you're shooting at them as they approach you. If that doesn't stop them, you have to switch to a bladed weapon of some kind. And then what's your tactic? Are you using a slow, heavy weapon or a fast weapon?
I'm sure somebody has done it, and I would actually be curious to watch a gameplay video where somebody says, all I did was drop kick my way through the game. I would actually be interested to see a little bit of that.
I like the katana. I like to spin around zombies and katana them down, and drop kick. I mean, that shit's hilarious. I only use the guns really for the bosses, and usually when they piss me off, there is a great like moment of contentness when like one of these big zombies shows up and kicks the crap out of you for a moment there, and you're like, oh really? And then you pull out an electrocuting Mac 10 and just decimate them, and you're like, good, on to the rest of the zombies. And the thing is, I only use that gun on the big zombies because it's more fun to use the cattle prod or the spear or the katana or all these other things rather than just try to shoot your way through the game. It's not that kind of game. Like you can play it as just a boom, 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 but like you can have a variety of destruction. Yeah, and it looks pretty. Like for a zombie apocalypse, it looks pretty.
I like it a lot.
Yeah. But I acknowledge the fact that if you're like a serious gamer who's gonna be like, I want like a deep, profound story about how zombies destroy life. It's like, no, you're not gonna get that.
Well, this is the same thing that I've. It's funny. This echoes what I kind of read about. Because Oppenheimer and Barbie came out at the same weekend.
Yeah.
And it really was this thing where they were like, well, do you want to have fun or do you want to be miserable? And so I'm like, yeah, I'll watch Barbie. I mean, I will when it comes out. I'm actually kind of curious. I have zero interest in it, but I'll watch it because it looks fun.
Oldest saw it twice.
Yeah.
And
I've read it's
very
really
good. It's fun, and it's also quite subversive.
Yeah, and that's fine for me because that's the thing is Oppenheimer. I already know what that is. I don't need to watch a whole movie about it. I don't need to watch 3 hours. Because I read that Nolan's sound design has come back in full force. Where if you want to actually hear what people are saying, good luck. So,
my wife long ago. The two of us, we just put subtitles on.
Yeah,
everybody fucking like just murmurs.
No, I can't.
Mumblecore, isn't that they call it?
David Lynch did a perfect Atomic Bomb episode. I've seen Oppenheimer in a much better version. I'm good. I don't.
No, I like silly. Is it Cillian? I think it's Cillian. It's Cillian.
I think it is supposed to be Cillian Murphy. Yeah, which is.
I like Cillian Murphy. So listen, I'll watch it. I like Nolan, so I'll give it a shot.
If somebody edits it down to 2 hours or 90 minutes, I'll probably watch it.
I'm gonna watch it as a mini series. How about that?
Here's the fun thing: is I would bet at this point that somebody could apply some kind of machine algorithm to tamp down the music and bring the dialogue up. If someone does that, I'll watch it.
Oh man, you know what? See, that's interesting that you bring that up because lately, whenever we play video games, right? Especially games like Dead Island 2.
Oh, you
they
turn
do
the
this
music
thing.
off.
Yeah, I turn the music off because they do this thing, right? Where they're like, something bad is gonna happen, something badness is happening. And I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm doing and talk to you. And I've just got this music, like the psycho music where it's like, dee, 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 dee. And I'm like, fuck you, music. I'm good. I don't need you to synthetically create an emotion in me. So I just turn the music off. And then I can like run around and kill zombies, and you and I can talk about whether Godzilla's a girl or not, and fuck around, right? And I would love in movies to be able to turn the fucking music down, like a video game feature, like a special feature on a DVD where it's like, would you like to turn down the music volume on the movie like 30% or something like that?
And I don't disagree that there is this unfortunate tendency in video games. I know what some of the logic is, but there's just this feeling that you can't have quiet parts that are just like tension can't be natural. There has to be some kind of unnecessary sound that's added in. It's supposed to add something when it's really not actually adding anything, and it's really just there for because some asshole wants to.
Are you being invaded?
Oh! No, I was. It's good. It's a good sound effect, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it sounds like you're being invaded over there.
This is what I'm talking about, is this idea that you have to inject something to give some kind of extra whatever. So it is unfortunate that
the tension that Joe's about to get swatted or something like that.
Yeah. I actually have a lot of helicopters, which is great. I don't need them for much, but I have them.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
But yes, I know what you mean. That idea that artificial, they worry that you're not going to feel it, so they want to create the tension for you.
Yeah, and
some people love that.
Some people
do love that.
In games like that are open, games like we're playing with Dead Island 2, which is pretty much an open world, a confined or contained open world thing. It's harder to create music for a game like that tells the narrative because you don't know whether you're just standing in an empty room or if you've run into a crowd of zombies. So it's all dynamic, and the problem is it overdoes it. It just
who did it really well? Probably the best gaming soundtrack I think I remember. Not the best soundtrack, but the best way they handled their soundtrack was I found the Assassin's Creed Ezio games.
Oh yeah, those are great.
They knew how to have this kind of quiet background music when you were walking around the cities. It would come in and then it would kind of go out. And then when you were in combat or like cut sequences, they would have like then the adventure music would kick in. But it felt like the music was following your actions rather than trying to tell you how to feel. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's I rewatched the other day the shootout from Heat. You know, the street shootout.
Yeah.
Which has no music, and it is probably the most tense shootout scene in terms of realistic shootouts that's ever been done on film. And it's because they filmed it very. What they did was they didn't. And you may already know this. There was no gunfire inserted into that scene. Sound effect. What they did was they put mics all over the cars, all over the people. They just captured it so that it would be real.
Interesting.
And that is where I understand why you turn the music off, because I would be interested, and maybe if we play through Dead Island 2 again, I will turn the music off to see what it feels like to play without it, because it is overdone, and it's very frequent that it is overdone. And this again is, to go back to Nolan, this is a movie problem too, where they don't allow anything to breathe.
Nolan is guilty of using the music to get you. Now,
yeah.
In his favor, he does pick really good music because Hans Zimmer makes incredible soundtracks for him. But I think that Nolan can often lean too heavily on that soundtrack.
Well,
and a great
my
example
problem is his justification to me is nonsense, where he says, "Oh, well, it's because I think the visuals should tell you everything you need." Then make a silent film. Make a movie that
like
or
Dark
that
Knight.
Somebody holds up a cue card or something.
Yeah, when he did Dark Knight, Hans Zimmer created a sound for the Joker.
Oh, for the Joker. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And the thing is, like, it's great, but you know what? The Joker is bad enough without it, but Nolan uses it and creates this hyper sense. Like when you hear that noise, I think it's actually in the frequency that causes like a sense of like disquiet.
Yes,
right?
it is. Yeah.
And it's like, I appreciate that you're using all your tricks.
Well,
but I think you lean too heavily on them to some degree.
The Dark Knight is a great example of what he did with restraint before, because, for example, in the dialogue scenes, there's none of that, almost none of that. There's in some of it, but for example, the scene where he's talking to Two-Face, his whole "I'm an agent of chaos," there's no music there. It's the two of them talking back and forth.
Just chatting, yeah.
Right, and it's the actors and the dialogue, and that conveys everything. You don't need to have a pounding score on top of it. And that's where it feels like, because he got this status as, I can't make a bad film, now he's kind of, we've talked about restraint, right? That's his George Lucas problem.
You think he's at that point now where he doesn't think he needs to
Oh, absolutely. Because
back.
somebody, I was reading it might have been on The Verge or Polygon, I don't remember, where somebody said they went back and revisited Tenet, which I've never seen. But they said they hated it the first time.
I still haven't watched Tenet.
Well, this person said, I watched it the first time and I hated it. This time, I didn't hate it as much, but I still can't stand what he's doing with sound and noise. I'm like, okay, well, then I don't need to watch this. So it's one of those things where you still have to be able to understand that I get the artistic intent, but I don't know why it has to be. I guess you can be hostile to the viewer if that's your point, but then it comes off as gratuitous performance art to me. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. If you want to nail yourself to the top of a Volkswagen and say that it's a representation of Christ and religion's effect on the world, I guess you can, but you're not going to get a lot of people to sympathize with that argument that way. Maybe do it a little bit more nuanced.
Well, this is what's that movie that the guy who made it that there's a house and his pregnant wife and it's supposed to symbolize
Mother.
That's
Aronofsky.
I think Aronofsky's
another person who went off the deep end.
He got to that point where he was like, I am an artiste, and just went with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't even necessarily mind that.
And you know what? Listen, on the other end of this, it's going to be like kind of a weird defense. So Ridley Scott, right? Ridley Scott is a great director. And there's never been a movie of his that I thought had bad direction. Like even Prometheus. Prometheus is a stunning movie to look at. Right? My issue is that I think the story doesn't work. And there's a few major logic holes that derive from the story, right? But there's never a moment when I'm watching that movie where I think, this looks like shit. No, the direction is excellent. There's never been a Ridley Scott movie that doesn't look and doesn't move phenomenally.
Right. Prometheus, when it came out and got bombed, nobody criticized the visuals. Nobody.
No, it looks beautiful.
They didn't understand why it was an aliens movie.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the story's dumb. I just don't think it was an aliens movie. I don't mind Prometheus. That movie has actually improved for me a bit.
What pissed me off about Prometheus, other than the whole of if a donut is running at you, just run to the side. Anyway,
well, there is that.
Yes. Is outside of these stupid plot holes.
Yes.
What annoys me is that all the stuff with David was so good, and then it was counterbalanced by so much other shit that was so bad.
Well, and that's why
that made no sense.
I will come back and say there was a fantastic fan edit of the two movies called Paradise, which focuses on David and cuts as much as possible of the rest. So I agree. That's why I only watched that fan edit, but I do.
But did Ridley Scott direct the sequels?
He did Covenant, yeah.
Oh, he did, didn't he?
Oh, he did.
I still haven't seen Covenant.
Covenant it's the same as Prometheus. It's a flawed, beautiful film. There's lots of things about Covenant.
It starts with him bombing the engineers, right?
No. Well, okay. Technically, that's not in the movie. Technically, that was released outside of it, like Matrix Animatrix style.
But they put it in the supercut.
The Paradise cut does include it, yes. Now, I think that when Covenant came out, you could opt to play it with it, I think.
Yeah.
But it was not in the original theatrical one. They released that in between to explain what happened. It was, it was a prequel to a prequel, whatever. So, yes. But yes, the bombing thing was not in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I'm saying is that Ridley Scott is one of those directors that he's always been good at directing. Good screenplay, not so much, but he's always been good at directing.
Yeah.
What you've got now with Nolan and Aronofsky is that like you're right.
It's lack of restraint. It's a lack of restraint problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And some directors suffer from it more than others. I mean, there's some directors who are almost so restrained they'll never try to make anything outside of their realm.
Well, that's the Kevin Smith problem.
Yes.
I'm just going to make stoner comedies forever, and all I care about is if the stoners like it.
And I make money, and I can keep going and making more.
Which is fine. I don't have a problem with it.
Listen,
but don't pretend it's not that. That's my problem.
I don't have a problem with that because he basically said, you know what? I wanted to do something different with my life. This is what he wants to be doing. Enjoy it.
Yeah. No, and that's, like I said, I have no opposition to it.
I mean, I don't want to see it. Honestly,
no,
you know what? I don't think
where I bristle with Kevin Smith is when he gets angry at people who call him on the fact that he's making the same types of movies all the time and says, no, I'm not. Well, yes, you are.
You know what?
It's fine. But just admit it.
Clerks 3.
Oh God.
I talked so much shit about the fact they were making a Clerks 2. I didn't understand the need for it, right? Because Clerks 1 was good. Honestly, I love Clerks 2. I loved Clerks 2 so much. I loved it way more than the original. I thought it was a great movie.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
I did. No, I did. I thought it was.
I know. You've told me that.
I thought it was a very fun flick, right? And especially dealing with that kind of stage in life. But Clerks 3, I watched some scenes and read about what he did, and I'm like, God, it's fucking miserable. Like, do you know anything about the movie?
Yeah, but you know what? That is the same as...
It's like Dante's wife and child are dead.
Yeah, but that's... Okay, you have to remember... Okay, let me look at something. I want to make sure I have this correct, because I'm pretty sure... So Clerks 3 was... Okay, yes, it was right after his... Or not right after, but it was after his heart attack.
Yeah.
And that's what I had read, is that movie, for anybody who... It's like Temple of Doom. Now, I love Temple of Doom, right? But Spielberg and Lucas, especially Lucas, has said, I was miserable. I was going through a divorce. I hated everything. And I put all of that misery into that film. That's why it's so much darker than the other two. And Spielberg was kind of like, didn't care because he was having some stuff, except that he made Kate Capshaw. So that's very clear. But he wasn't really enthused about any of it. And so...
Which is funny because it's still better than like fucking Crystal Skull or
of course it is, because that was at a point where Spielberg still I mean, he's still good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say Spielberg's bad, but you can tell Spielberg's kind of...
Spielberg is safe. Spielberg is safe.
Yeah, he's kind of past his prime of I'm really engaged. I really feel like that movie's probably as good as it is because he was like, okay, Cop Show is extremely hot and I'm going to marry this woman. But Lucas has said, no, really, I think that's what kept him.
He found his muse.
Well, if you look at some of the behind the scenes stuff, I mean, he's not even looking at what's going on half of Spielberg. Isn't looking at much of it. And Lucas has admitted that he was in a miserably dark and depressing place.
Yeah.
Which is why you have a PG-13 movie where someone's heart gets ripped out as they're dropped into a volcano and incinerated in front of a child. Like it's that's divorce. Right there. The guy got his heart ripped out and incinerated in front of his children. Like this makes sense.
No, yeah, it's fine. I get it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Clerks 3 is a response to what happens if I die? What would have happened? Because he, from what I read, almost did, and was in a really bad shape.
and he changed his life, and he's a vegan now. And,
yeah. So I understand.
Yeah, and I get that. But here's the thing: I have to watch it separate from the director, because that's the thing is like. I need to watch it as a movie, and as a movie,
you've brought it back to Oppenheimer for me. Thank you very much.
Oh, I know, but if I watch it as a movie, right, it is depressing. Now I haven't seen Oppenheimer, so I can't make a defense or whatever.
I'm sure Oppenheimer, from a visual point of view, is a masterpiece. I'm sure.
But Clerks 3, like the fact that like it just feels. It feels like they fridged his wife. You know that term where they basically...
Oh, yes, I know it because Kyle Rayner is involved with it, and I fucking hate Kyle Rayner.
Yeah, it feels like they fridged his wife. Is that rather than have an evolution of the character where he becomes a father and a husband, they're like, oh no, she died pregnant. He has nothing. And you're like, Jesus Christ. That right there, like it erases the progress of the characters that they made in Clerks 2.
And you watched the movie, right? You watched the whole movie.
No, I haven't watched the whole movie.
Oh, you only watched clips. Oh, okay,
I read about the story, and then I went and found someone who did a detailed explanation of it. I found all the clips that I was curious about, and I was like, okay. I imagine that there are parts of this movie that are very funny. I was like, but the concept of it really puts me off. Because remember, like, we're all sensitive to different things. We always are, right? I mean, like, the whole dog thing in Dying Light really hurt you. The whole kid thing in Dying Light 1 really fucking bothered me. We're sensitive to different things. And I liked Clerks 2 enough that I felt like watching Clerks 3 and this different direction would hurt how much I liked Clerks 2. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm good. I check out here.
Yes, we respond to different things, but I often point out, and I maintain this now, is that one of the games that got the few genuine emotional responses out of me was a child dying in Assassin's Creed Origins, where they make you think you can save the daughter and she drowns. And I was so angry at the fact that the game pulled the rug out for me.
But the game uses that importantly because that's what destroys. Isn't that what separates the husband and the wife essentially?
No. Well, no. That's his child also dies. And that's why they are separate at the beginning. But no, this is a person you're helping.
Oh,
at a point about midway through the game.
You told me about this. Yeah, there's no way to get to her.
I'm like, I've got all the skills. Okay, there's a time limit. I just have to get there, and you find she's dead. And it's a very good gameplay mechanic because it's you can't save everybody. It's one of those things.
It's Clark Kent's dad's heart attack.
Right, and the thing that's good about it is where they place it. At that point, you're starting to feel kind of invincible. Once you're at a certain point with games, you got enough skills and everything. You're like, okay, only a boss is going to really be a challenge for me now, as long as I'm smart and I know what I'm doing. Well, no, wrong. And you have to go back and tell the mother. That's the other part. As I think you fish the body out.
Well, you know what? Listen,
you've put concrete on her feet or something.
Passed the sociopath test.
Yeah, I was very upset about that.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that's like, what? I didn't get her? Fuck this. X. Just trying to skip through it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was pissed. But that's why that game is one of my favorites.
Well, you know what?
It's really good.
I will say this for Dead Island 2. There's a whole thing where there's a board of missing people. And both of us said separately, like, they're going to be dead, aren't they? Yeah. And we were both bummed about that fact. Of like, no, I want to find some people alive.
I'm hoping one or two are not. But I do like the fact that they all don't just die of... like zombies eating them. Like the one guy tripped a trap.
The trap killed him. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just you hear them getting eaten and that's it. Like every single
he's
time.
a zombie now. Yeah.
Right. I don't think we've run into that. We haven't had to kill one of them yet, right?
Not that I remember.
They've all been dead so far when we got to them.
Yeah.
They were already dead.
They've been dead. Yes, they've been dead.
I would guess, we don't know yet because we haven't done them all. I would guess we'll have to
there-
kill one
there
and
have
we'll find
been-
one alive.
There have been a ton of people we've gone looking for to find out they're zombies, like the bodybuilders. They were all like, giant zombies.
Yeah, which is funny. That was funny.
Yeah. But I do like that. So, I do like that we have that reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I understand that game design very much is trying to figure out how to make people feel and act. I just going back to the music thing, I just don't need you to push me.
No,
with the music.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I got to that point with a game we played at one point. I said, I'm shutting the music off. I don't remember what it was, but I'm like, okay, this is.
I think I have turned the volume down and or shut the music off on just every game.
Outriders, I shut the music off and it was much better.
Oh yeah, they had like a weird bad metal soundtrack.
I didn't like it, so that helped to push me to do it. But I really felt like that game worked very well without a soundtrack.
Best soundtrack is
Fallout. I never have the radio on in Fallout. So there's background music, but it's very lightweight. It's out of the way. It doesn't change. It's very, very airy.
What's the game with the guy with the paisley shoulders? The one that you like? Is it Almost Human? The cyborg one.
Oh no, that's Deus Ex.
Deus Ex.
Almost Human.
Yeah. Deus
Well, there's
Ex.
a game called Detroit Almost Human. That's why I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah.
Deus
Ex. I played the second one. Isn't that Deus Ex 2?
No, you're talking about Human Revolution, the one where it's all gold.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
played that one.
That's actually technically the fourth game. Third game.
I really enjoyed the soundtrack for that.
Oh, that's one of my favorite soundtracks.
It's very
in a
good.
Game.
I still turned it down a little bit, but I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just the way it was kind of in the background. That guy's
score is unbelievable.
It wasn't invasive. I guess is what it is.
No, it's beautifully done. I
that's hard.
The soundtrack.
Yeah, that's hard to make a soundtrack that is supportive but not invasive to the movie or game. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else who's really good at it. Because Hans Zimmer's music is very invasive. His soundtracks are a character. They're a character unto themselves.
Yeah, they are.
Right?
They're confrontational.
Very much so, yeah. And I like his music on its own. And I think I'm trying to think if there's another screener, because like even John Williams is very in your face.
But even there was Hans Zimmer. I've heard stuff of his that is not that way. So it also is the director saying, which is a Nolan thing. Hey,
I want it big. Go big.
No, not that. Yeah. I want a sonic jackhammer so I can crack these people's skulls into pieces. Deliver that for me, please. Because Hans Zimmer Hans Zimmer did Gladiator, and it's not like that.
Oh no! When that music, the music at the end where he's like, you see the ground
that's what I'm saying. Is it doesn't? It's not because Hans Zimmer is inherently given to making music that is that way.
No, you're saying
it's
he
because
can be
someone's
subtle. Yeah.
Yes. If somebody says to him, "I want that," he can deliver it, because that is something that I think that Hans Zimmer is unfairly getting tagged with, because he does all these Nolan pictures, is now people refer to him as having this aggressive score. Yes, he does in Nolan's pictures, but that is not that Hans Zimmer can't do anything else. He's doing what's asked of him. But if you want to go back and find movies where he's done other stuff, you will find
You know who's a really quiet movie scorer is the soundtrack
not
to
James Horner.
No,
da, 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 da. Well, that's John Williams.
No, the guy Cliff Martinez. I think it's the guy who did.
Oh yeah.
What do you call it? The remake of not Somnium. Jesus Christ, what's
Suspiria.
it called? No, well, he did Suspiria too.
Yeah, you're right.
But he did with
do?
Clooney. God damn it, Solaris.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, he did the Solaris soundtrack, and I love it because it's there. It's always there in the background, but it doesn't overwhelm the movie and what's going on.
Well, he also does a bunch of Nicholas Winding Refn, however you're supposed to pronounce it.
Oh, yeah.
Neon Demon, Drive. I think he did
good.
Drive.
Cliff Martinez is one of the few...
Didn't he do Ghost in the Shell, too? Was he Ghost in the Shell?
No, that wasn't him. That was, I think, was that Jesper Kidd? Hold on.
No, that's Assassin's Creed.
No, but
I know,
he does
I know
soundtracks as well.
Well, no, I
What's
know,
his
but that's
name?
not.
Hold
he
on, I
did-
have the Ghost in the Shell soundtrack. So let me say, because
Who did the music?
I know the
Jesus.
guy because remember he
It's really
released
funny
it.
that I can't find it. Yeah, because I
'Cause
have
he,
it too.
yeah, what was it?
What is that guy's name?
I
the
can't
hell's
find it.
music?
Damn.
Hold
what's
on,
his
I'm in the
name?
credits. I'll find it. Music by. That's editing. Clint Mansell. That's why. I
There,
mixed up the
Clint
front name.
Mansell.
Clint
Yeah, he
Mansell.
did. Clint
Yeah, yeah.
Mansell did a lot of Aronofsky's movies.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Clint
Moon.
Mansell
Moon's a good
also-
one. Yeah, Moon's a good
Moon
one.
is right. Clint Mansell also did the score for part of Mass Effect 3. Remember that
Yes, he did.
sequence where you're leaving Earth and that music that they use?
I do. I have that
Yeah.
particular soundtrack. Yeah.
And that music is used to really make you feel that
And
sequence.
he did Pie, which is probably the first thing I ever.
Oh
remember from
God, yeah.
that opening track. Very of its
Yes.
time, but great.
So I mean, like, yeah, they use the music to affect your emotions, but you do wonder what the emotions would be without the effect.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, am I going to care less if there's no music for this?
Right.
You know,
And we know it can be done because there are movies that work with very little or no score, so it can be done.
Well, John Carpenter does that a lot. Where like he's got his. I like the way that John Carpenter scores his movies because it's very subtle.
It's
just
often
kinda like,
minimal.
yeah,
it's
it's like
often very simple.
dun-dun-dun,
Well, The Thing. I mean, The
Dun.
Thing is a classic case where it's like don't. I mean, it's just a couple of beats and then it just drops off.
Yeah, and it's not even like when you're watching Friday the 13th where it's like where you're like, oh my God, what's going on? Like his music is just there kind of in the background, like cracking
No,
open a
Halloween
beer.
is probably the closest that comes to that, where it's like that music is a tense. You know, the Halloween theme is specifically
Yeah.
meant to make you start getting edgy. Whereas the rest of them are more like background fun.
Well,
He usually has a title track theme, and the rest of it then fades into the background. You know,
yeah. Music in movies has always been there to try to heighten the effect of the emotion. So,
Yeah.
you know, but I would love it if there was a feature. Going back to that, I would love it if there was a feature where you could just shut the soundtrack off and experience the
at
movie
some point it will
on
happen
its
through
own.
machine learning. It'll happen
Well, yes, machine
because
learning.
they
You know what?
they already have that stuff now that can do it. So
I had an interesting thing happen the other day, just to call back to one of the other shows we were talking about, the whole AI art stuff, the machine learning art. I realized I had too much art in my phone, and I was creating an album in my phone just to have art in, so if I was looking for images, I could find them quickly. And I didn't realize till afterwards that I had just, without even thinking about it, not put any of the machine learning like funny portraits that I got of like me and my wife and stuff like that we were none of that. I never considered any of that art. Just like it's not even I made a decision. It was just kind of like I was putting art in a folder and that shit just didn't go there. And then afterwards I was like, oh, interesting. I was like, I didn't consciously make a decision about this. I just knew that it wasn't art.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I thought that was amusing. Yeah. So anyway,
yeah.
Yes, soundtracks. Dead Island 2 is very good if
Yep.
you're a certain kind of player.
Right.
And if you're curious, you can always watch our game videos to see
Yep.
what kind of kerfuffle
you're in
it
for.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did not think I was going to enjoy it, and I enjoy it quite a bit. I enjoy Carla. I was worried she was going to be Rosie Perez, but she is in fact Michelle Rodriguez, who I quite like. You know, so it's like and she's so excited. I think it's the other thing too is that you as a main character. I mean, your Irish punk rocker is not as excited as my character. Carla is fucking thrilled. She's immune to zombies, and she's kicking and punching and killing things and running around, and she's having a great fucking time. Carla is a great character to hang out in the apocalypse with.
Yeah.
Although your character is very funny.
Well, my character enjoys chaos, but not when she has to directly interact with it, which is pretty much like me.
Yeah, whereas my character, they're like, you need to go into this zombie place, kill all these zombies, and you're like, and she's like, yeah,
Whee!
Okay, let's go do it. Yeah,
Yay,
I'm like,
that's what I have muscles for, motherfucker.
Yeah,
Woo!
Carla's excited. I'm going to be excited too. Let's go do it.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have more. I mean, imagine how different fucking Metal Gear Solid would be if Solid Snake was like,
if Snake was excited about it.
If it was really excited, you know, like it was like,
yeah,
fuck yeah, I'm gonna go fucking stop these people. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Be interesting.
So, you've got reviews for me. What do you got?
I do. I saw that they were making a Twisted Metal TV series.
Oh
Peacock.
yeah,
Yes.
with Hawkeye.
Anthony Mack.
Hawkeye.
Yeah,
With
no,
Falcon.
Falcon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought,
I don't know why, but yeah, they are.
That's actually the best reason to make one. Is why? Because at first my reaction was, oh, here's another Battleship where we're gonna make because they made infamously a terrible Battleship film. I've played
they did.
Twisted Metal 1, 2, 3, Black, and I think it's called Road Ramp. I don't remember. There was one that was kind of a neat, cartoony looking one. So I haven't played every Twisted Metal, but I've played at least half of them, or at least the big.
Well, I mean, they're great.
Ones.
They're great driving fighting games.
Yeah, they're great fight games, but they barely
there's
have a story.
There's no story.
Well, there's not no story, but it's so minor that once I thought about it, I'm like, well, they could really do whatever they want because they only have to establish a few basic things, which is they have to have reasons for people to be in cars that are bashing into each other or shooting at each other. Well, they've made Mad Max films, therefore that's not much of a stretch. And the thing I wasn't sure about is how do you set the world up? Like, how do you get to what this is? Because that's the part where in the games, it's highly inconsistent and really doesn't matter.
Dude,
you don't really
we were playing on an obstacle course on top of buildings.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So you understand that the world has obviously gotten meaner, or meaner than it currently is, by not by much.
Is it supposed to be like a near future?
Yeah, because the cars you're driving are somewhat contemporary cars in most cases. They're not hypercars or space cars. They're supposed to be relatively grounded cars that have enhancements. In theory, I mean, not to get to the top of a building because you don't really see how you get there. You just get there. But on the ground, you could put machine guns onto cars. You could armor cars up so they could bash other ones. You could put jets on them and that type of thing. Yeah, I mean, the flurry of missiles and some of the other stuff is a little bit outrageous. Yes, certainly. But, I mean, they built a tumbler for Batman, so you can make cars into tanks. So, yeah, the world itself is just wrecked. You don't really know why. It doesn't matter. Calypso is generally the reason the tournament is happening. He grants a wish to whoever wins, but even that comes and goes a bit. But it's somewhat consistent that he's involved.
I didn't know anything about that.
Have you never watched the PlayStation 1 cut end titles that they filmed? The live action? Oh, you should watch them. Yeah, you should watch them.
So wait, what is this?
So look up PlayStation 1 FMV. What?
We'll be here forever. Just tell me.
Oh, well, I mean, there's ones for different ones, but like Sweet Tooth is a homicidal clown, which is, I bring him up because, of course, he's the face of the franchise. And at the end of that, he shows up in his ice cream truck with a woman who's a hostage, and he's won the tournament, and Calypso says, okay, there must be some mistake. You can have anything you want in the entire world, and you asked for this, and it's a paper bag that he's named Harold. And he grabs the bag and he starts talking to it. And that actually is in the show, which is very funny that they kept that. And so, but the real thing about that is how awful the full motion video is. But there is a story. There is a basic story, which is if you win this thing, you get, it's the idea of you get anything you wish, but usually it's a perverted version, kind of the Jin idea where, oh, well, if you don't wish very carefully, you could say, I want the biggest dick in the world. And it's actually a piece of metal that makes it so you can't move. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. There's usually a dig to it. But in Sweet Tooth's case, I think the idea was what he was asking for was so nonsensical that Calypso didn't even bother because what the hell do you do with a paper bag? Like, how do you twist that?
Yeah.
But in any event, so at first it sounded like a stupid idea. Then I thought, well, it's actually the best kind of thing to adapt. There's really no story, so there's nothing to really get wrong. You invent it, and if the story's good, you're not really contradicting anything because there's not much to contradict. This is the one thing you can't screw up, or in theory you can't really alter, is Sweet Tooth. And they don't. Sweet Tooth is essentially the same or a variation that's close enough to what he's always been in the games, which is a homicidal clown with an ice cream truck and wearing a mask. That's it. And he's not wearing a shirt and he's got polka dot pants. That's as much, and they even do the flaming head thing at the end. I like the fact that they waited. They didn't set his head on fire the whole time, because some people were really bothered by the fact that he just turned into a demon, as opposed to what was supposed to be Well, in Twisted Metal Black, he's cursed by a priest, and that's why his head's on fire. So, again...
Sure it is. Okay.
Sure it is. So, Anthony Mackie plays a character named John Doe, who is, I believe, and one of the characters from one of the games is named John Doe. And he ends up driving Roadkill, which is one of the cars from the game, but not till way into the series. So it starts off, and he is a delivery driver. They call him Milkman, who does deliveries between these walled cities. So they did the Judge Dredd thing, where now this is the strange part.
All right, so they're just like sci-fiing this up where they can.
Yeah, there was a catastrophic. They say it's a power grid failure, but it looked like it was an EMP. It doesn't matter. Maybe it was a solar flare. They never really specify. But specifically in 2002, all current technology that was electronic got fried. Everything. TV, cell phones, all of it. So what's funny is all the culture is stuck in 2002, which means it's all those era songs, which are both awful and very funny as they're deployed in the show. Because in the show, they treat the most disposable, who cares, one-hit wonder songs as like eternal hits because nothing came after them. So there's an entire sequence built around the thong song. And it's actually really funny because
it's like a weird alternate present is what you're saying.
Yes. Kind of like in Fallout, everybody loves the 50s music because that's what the era evolved with. In this, because everything stopped in 2002, whatever was seen as popular is now persistently the classic whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. So far, it sounds interesting.
Yeah. So I like... I actually had a lot of fun with the series. Now it's... there's not a lot of heft to it. It's supposed to be fun and over the top, kind of Dead Island-ish in a lot of ways. And that's what I think it does very well. It didn't try to get, outside of a few short moments, it never tries to be all that serious. It embraces the fact that it's a ludicrous premise. So there was the 2002 event that shut everything down, at which point all the cities, for whatever reason, walled themselves off. And now anybody who goes in between, that's basically like the Wild West, where there's bandits and murderers and roving, psychopaths and all that stuff is in between. Why? Never explained. And there are certain cities that are seen as worse than others. Like New Chicago, for some reason, is apparently the worst one. But it's never really specified, why it's the worst. And New San Francisco is the best one. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter. So Anthony Mackie basically drives packages between these places. And they're often things like at one point he delivers dog food. He's running around shooting at people. They're shooting at him and he's delivering dog food. So they give him gas. Then he goes to the next place and, and that's the whole thing. It's the whole setup of the classic delivery driver thing. So he goes to New San Francisco and he's brought in, which is very unusual to be brought into the city for any reason. Usually you have to stay outside and they give you the package, but you're not allowed in. And he meets Raven, who is Neve Campbell, and she's the mayor of New San Francisco, and she says, I need you to deliver a package. If you do, we'll bring you in here, which is a huge thing to him because he has no memory. He doesn't know who his parents were. He's always been a driver. That's all he's ever done. And so that's the premise of why he's going to make this dangerous run to New Chicago. And so he gets this. He doesn't know what it is, and he's not allowed to ask. That's the what
he gets him. He gets a MacGuffin, is what he gets.
Well, no, they tell you what they do. Show you what it is, which is hysterically stupid. But so he agrees to the run, and he has to go to New Chicago. And basically, the bulk of this is he has to do it in 10 days. So it's the Escape from New York thing. It's Escape from New York, Judge Dredd, and Mad Max, all welded together with Weird Al writing the script, I guess. So, for example, Sweet Tooth runs Las Vegas. Now, I knew Sweet Tooth was going to be in it. And the thing is that anytime you've got the homicidal clown character, you kind of know what you're going to get, right? I mean, there's only so many ways they do characters like this, a big over-the-top character. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I'd seen reviews that said, oh, Sweet Tooth is in this too much. They're trying to make it too much about him. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I was afraid of, is they're going to use him too much. and he's going to be a one-note character, and it's just a lunatic.
Is Will Arnett the voice of Sweet Tooth?
He is. They got a wrestler to do the body, and then Will Arnett, who honestly, he's fine. I don't know that anybody couldn't have done that voice, but sure. Will Arnett, it's stunt casting. That's fine. I don't care. Will Arnett apparently really likes the games and is very behind this series, so I guess that's why he wanted to make sure that Sweet Tooth sounded the way he thought he should. Fine. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not really important. But I was very pleasantly surprised that Sweet Tooth is done really well. They don't play him as the one-note homicidal character. He, in fact, has an arc, which I was not expecting. So when John Doe is the woman that's with him, Quiet. She attempts to carjack him several times, and then she and her brother run across Agent Stone, who's a character from the games, who's played by Thomas Hayden Church, and he essentially is trying to reestablish the law by being, the worst possible cop in all of human history, capitalize each first letter of that sentence. And so, he's trying to, reestablish order through, Iron Curtain means, like execution type stuff. So, of course, you're supposed to hate him. And he ends up catching them. And he basically throws a gun and says, well, one of you's got to kill yourself. Either one of you kills yourself or I kill you both. Their brother kills himself. So she's left as the survivor. They brand her to indicate that she was once, arrested or whatever by Agent Stone. And then she runs into John Doe, or Mackey's character, and they end up partnering together because basically if they don't, they're both captured by Sweet Tooth. And Sweet Tooth basically says to them that, if you survive, he's like, I want an audience for my show. If you sit through my show and you're honest with me about what you think of it, I'll let you go. And Mackey's like, really? You're going to let us go? And he's like, yeah, although in fairness, nobody's ever survived all 3 acts. Here we go. And so he puts him at a table and he proceeds to do a play as representing what is essentially a hotel commercial because he lives in Las Vegas hotels. So he's basing it on what he thinks a hotel experience is. And Mackey tells him it's great, and he's about to kill him when Quiet says, no, it was terrible. It was awful. You should never do this play again. And he's like, well, I respect your honesty. I'm going to let you go. And I thought, okay, now's the part where he's going to say, well, because he says, well, this has been a night of first for me. I'm like, oh, this is going to be the first night he breaks his promise. But no, he lets them go. He says, I'll retool my act, and I'll go out on the road, and I'll find new audiences, and I'll try out new things. And he lets them go. So he's really not, he's killed all of Las Vegas, apparently. So he is still a lunatic, but he's not just Hannibal Lecter in a mask. You know what I mean? They're not playing him the simple, stupid way that
Is he unkillable for some reason?
I don't know that he's unkillable but he does get shot through the head and appears to survive. So I don't know. It's not really clear. In the games, of course, he is. He does seem to be able to take a lot of physical punishment. But whether he's truly unkillable, it seems like maybe he is. Although it really doesn't matter because they light his head on fire and it doesn't seem to burn him. So whatever. Who cares? It doesn't matter. So let's say yes. Because there's a part where I thought he was going to be the head of an army in Las Vegas of kind of Joker types. But he's not. He's the only one there. So how did he kill all these people? Well, I don't know, but he seemed to do it.
You mean Vegas is empty?
Vegas is dead. He's killed everyone there. There's bodies everywhere. And, he might be lying, but the fact that we're told multiple times he runs Las Vegas, and there's no one there but him, and there's bodies everywhere.
Well, how does he run it if everyone's dead?
Well, I think what they mean is you can't go into there unless you're going to go through him. I think that's what they mean by... nothing's going on. He's in an abandoned casino that barely seems to have power. So... I think it's one of those things where he's just the only person there because everybody else either was dead or he killed them, and it's kind of a Lobo situation where he's like, well, I killed my whole planet, now I'm just going to hang out here type of thing. I don't know. It doesn't matter because he leaves Las Vegas. Unlike Nicolas Cage, he makes it out alive. So Mackey and Quiet are on the road, and it's basically a series of them running across, warrior style, different gangs that are based around vehicular or kind of philosophical things. So they run into a convoy of tractor trailers that never stop. They have these ways of interconnecting the trucks while they're driving so that they can go in between them, kind of like docking bays that they but they never stop. They're always moving. It's a convoy that's constantly running on the roads. And he's like, well, how do you refuel? And they're like, oh, we just have people drive up and do it. It's not really that hard once you do it a couple hundred times. So they literally just always move. So that's the convoy. Then they run across a crazy religious cult.
So they're not bad at all. They're just kind of there.
The convoy?
Yeah.
The convoy seem to be good. They team up with them at the end. So they seem to be, I don't know, what is it, neutral, lawful? I don't know, whatever that is. That alignment. And then the holy men are evil. They basically rape, cannibalize, and kill anything. Jason Mantzoukas runs them. He's basically the insane preacher, which I didn't realize for a while that they were doing the insane priest character from the games because he's so different from what that character was. But I'm like, oh, okay, so this is a character. I get it. And so, and over time, Mackie and Quiet start to kind of get an affection for each other. And at first, it's just fucking friends. Literally, friends fucking. I should have said it that way. And then it becomes this thing where they're realizing they're caring about each other, but she's very, very against the whole thing. So she's very anti any type of human connection because she grew up as an indentured, essentially a slave. Yeah, she really was a slave. I shouldn't even say the same thing. But she thought that it's one of these things where, oh, you'll work for us for 4 years, then you'll be free. Well, that was always bullshit. They were always just going to keep them. And whenever they did something wrong, you would have punishment like cutting off a finger. So she's missing one of her middle fingers. So when she first gives Mackie a middle finger, when she tries to carjack him, there's no finger. But, you get the intent. Later, she gets a metal kind of Bruce Campbell almost metal finger that goes on there.
That's because they got tired. They got tired of doing the special effects.
Yeah, they didn't want to CG her finger out, and it did look weird. So, yeah. And I think it actually, does she use it at some point because it's metal? I can't remember. So they start to get this affection for each other. And there's little things that go on. If you remember, I was talking about that one B movie, the one with the football player, where they kept doing interesting new things. So it was new things were happening as they were journeying on their road thing. There was the electrical storm. Then there were the bandits. And it's the same thing here, where they have enough fresh ideas that it never feels like they're spinning the wheel. I'm not trying to use a pun, but they're not just recycling the same scene over and over and over.
They're not just spinning their wheels, not just twisting that metal. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, not just bending a metal into a Mobius strip. So they're doing enough things where it's like, okay, this is interesting. And it's very funny. Mackie plays this really interesting, almost Jack Burton character, where he's got this enthusiasm for everything, and he's kind of a lovable asshole, and he's very fallible because he's a really good driver, but he's not good at everything else. So he can drive a car really well, but there's a point where he's going to shoot somebody, and he realizes he gives Quiet a gun. He's got a gun. They start pulling the trigger, and they're empty. He's like, oh, shit, and he didn't put the bullets in the guns. So then they're panicking because they don't know what the hell they're going to do. It's stuff like that. So he's very likable in that way, and it's very vulgar. They're swearing up and down all over the place, which is great. He and Quiet have sex in a Chuck E. Cheese ball pit, which is a fascinating idea because I'm like, yeah, I guess if you do that right, you really just kind of go wherever you want. You just move around, and it's like a big fluid thing, and you just go all over the place. So that's a great scene where they're in the ball pit having sex, and they're having this very deep discussion, and they go back to having sex, and there's ball pit stuff flying everywhere. It's very funny. And so finally, basically, where they end up with is they all have this big showdown, which is very reminiscent of the game, where they're all in this big parking lot, and they're kind of having a demolition derby, and they get to do all the stuff they did from the video games. And then at the very end, they end up, so it ends up to be him and Quiet, and they agree to be partners. There's actually a thing I like where he switches cars. He's driving a Subaru something. I don't remember. One of their little cars, not the big, like Outback type, but a smaller kind of, like tiny car. Almost like a Corolla type. But it's not a Corolla because that's Toyota. And so when they get captured by the Holy Men, his car's name is Evelyn. And basically, the thing that you understand is that the one thing that he really cares about above everything else is the car, because you get flashbacks to when he was a child. And you finally get the explanation of what happened, which was his family was assaulted by bandits, and his dad said, just drive the car, and then he got into an accident and hit his head, and that's why he has amnesia. So he's grown up in that car, and he's been attempted to be sodomized, eaten, all this shit, and the car has gotten him out and kept him alive. So the car is essentially a person. It's like the dog, a dog that he's got.
Yeah.
And so there's a point where they're at the Holy Men thing, and him and Quiet find a way to escape, but they've got the car. And she says, we've got to leave. And he's like, I'm not leaving without the car. And she says, okay, if we're going to leave here, we have to leave the car. And he says, well, then just go. I'm going back for the car. At which point, that's like a major thing. Like she's very, very, that's a betrayal for her. Because he, at this point they were kind of getting involved. And now it's a realization that car in this moment means more to him than she does. So she's like, well, I hope you get fucking killed. And she leaves. And she's driving away and she doesn't look back. She doesn't turn around. She's just leaving and leaves. But as she's leaving, in the background, we see him and the preacher fighting. And there's a point where gasoline gets spilled out of the gas tank of the car because they gotten shot with a bullet, and the car blows up. Ooh. Which at this point in the series, I was like, holy shit, they blew the car. And I thought, okay, the car's going to survive. No, the car's fucking toast. He survives, but he's all fucked up, and everybody else just leaves because they assume he's dead. And she sees the explosion and assumes he's dead. So then she leaves and thinks he's dead. Well, he tries to recover the car. It's impossible. The car is toast. So how does he get, I think he takes a different car. Yeah, he must have boosted another car somewhere. And she goes back and runs into him again on the convoy, or right before they get back on the convoy. And she is not speaking to him. She's like, nope, you decided the car was more important than me. Get fucked. And he realizes he made a tremendous error. And so he, the bulk of that episode is him trying to convey that, and telling her, okay, you have to understand what this car was. I haven't known you for as long as I've lived in this car. Yes, I made a tremendous error, but it was born out of the fact that car is my life. That was my entire life was in that car. So I like the way they do that. The way they do the interplay between them. They don't just fall in love and now it's us against the world. There's disruption to it. It's not just, I'm in love with you, therefore everything in my life now doesn't matter before you. It's a nice way of reinforcing the fact that they haven't known each other that long. So I like that. And then they end up getting a new car, which is basically like a 90s Camaro. And that's the roadkill car from the games. And then they get into this big battle with Agent Stone. Sweet Tooth is there. They light his head on fire. There's a whole thing with Sweet Tooth, too, where you see that. Okay. Now, you will be very surprised by this particular segment. Because I don't know if Sweet Tooth ever really had a backstory. At least I don't remember any from the games I played, right?
I don't remember any backstory in the games. It was just
some of them do. No, some of them do. In Black, they do get into some of the backstories. There are some, but they're generally not that deep. And I don't remember Sweet Tooth. I watched Sweet Tooth's Twisted Metal Black videos. They never get into his backstory. It's all present day stuff. He's got a flaming head because he was cursed, but he was cursed because he was murdering people as an adult. They never show what brought him to this. In the show, they go back, and he was a child actor with parents who cared more about the show than him. And there was a new actor on the sitcom he was on that was more popular than him. And so he hated this character, but you didn't see who the actor was for a while. And then there's a part where they're filming an episode and the door opens and a golden retriever comes out. And everybody's like, oh, and they're all going crazy because, of course, it's a golden retriever, why wouldn't you? And he gets so infuriated that he takes a set of sewing needles and butchers the dog to death on the show in front of everybody, and that's what gets him committed.
I'm surprised that you survived that.
You know what? I didn't care. It was so over the top. You never see the dog. You never see what's going on. That helps. But the fact that I didn't care is because the series at this point was so disconnected from reality that I was the same way. I was like, oh no, he's going to kill the dog. And then when he did, I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. It was quick and it's off screen, whatever. And it was just fast. So for some reason, it didn't bother me at all. Because I guess in my mind, I was just like, oh, maybe he just scratched its paw.
Didn't dwell on it. Okay.
Something. So that they do the Sweet Tooth backstory, which I'm sure bothered some people. And then we get to the end and there's the big fight. And so they managed to deliver the package right on time. But Nev Campbell says, oh, no, the deal was for you. She's not coming in. It's one or the other. And this I actually really liked because he's like, well, then I'm not coming in. Forget it. But he'd spent all this time explaining to Quiet why it was so important for him to go to New San Francisco because he wanted a place, a home. He'd always lived on the road. He had no family, no nothing. And so she's like, well, you can't not go for me. This has been your entire life's dream. You're not going to stop it for me. And he says, no, I'm not going in. And so she pulls a gun on him and says, you are going in. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm not. And then she shoots him. And at first I'm like, why the fuck would she shoot him? And then she turns to Nev Campbell and says, one of your citizens needs medical attention, and they have to drag him in. And then she leaves with the car. I'm like, oh, that's clever. I like it because he's basically, bleeding to death, so he can't really resist. And it's a way to force them to take him in, and then she just leaves. And then you find out, of course, that Nev Campbell has an ulterior motive. Oh, the package, by the way, was Rocky Road ice cream that she'd never tried before, and she didn't particularly like it, so she doesn't even eat it. That's the package. Which, it's absurd. Fine. It's funny. It's funny enough. I didn't mind it. And then you find out that what they actually want him to do is be in the tournament because Nev Campbell wants to win, so that Calypso has to give her wish. Now, you never see Calypso in the whole thing. You hear his voice apparently once, but he's more of a mythology figure, a Kaiser Soze type than anything else. So I didn't even think they were going to really concretely say that he existed, but they do. And so the series ends where you see that Sweet Tooth is still alive because he gets shot in the head, and that's why one of his eyes, because in the games he's always missing an eye. And he had 2 eyes through the whole series till the very end. He gets shot and one of his eyes is missing. So he's still alive and running around. Agent Stone maybe kills himself, but you don't see it. So they're just setting it up so everybody can come back. Quiet's on the road and runs into what ends up being John Doe's sister. John Doe is told that actually he lived in New San Francisco. His family lived there, and so he's actually from there. But that he's going to lose all of it if he doesn't go into the contest with Calypso, and that's where it ends as a cliffhanger, which, of course, I'm just expecting them to cancel it now, of course. But
well, because you enjoyed it. You enjoyed it, therefore they have to cancel it.
I had fun, therefore it's going to have to get canceled. But honestly, I thought it was a blast. I would say that anybody should watch it if they're in for a fun series.
It's definitely not what I was expecting from a Twisted Metal series. And I guess you're right in that the Twisted Metal series didn't have enough of a story for them to really get hung up on it. So they just said, hey, let's get some cool cars and some smashing cars and make our own story.
I honestly think it's probably, and I've now read a lot of positive reviews. I'd read a couple of negative ones when it first came out. Now I've read far more positive ones. So I think people have figured out it's not meant to be a serious series. See, Twisted Metal Black was a serious game. It was trying to be a very grim, dark, before even DC got on that. Well, it was being a very Dark Knight type of version. That's why it's called Black. And I think people thought because that was the last really well-received entry that had story elements, I have a hunch most people thought that's the route it was going to go, and maybe they weren't ready for the fact that this is very over-the-top absurd. And that's why I think it works, because there's no way this would work as well as a serious thing. It's just, I can't imagine how it would be done with all these characters in this kind of world and not be silly, because then it just becomes Mad Max. And we've seen that. So by going this route and by having it set in that certain amount of time where it's frozen, that allows them to do funny things with songs of the era and people treat them seriously and we as the viewers laugh at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the part where Sweet Tooth and John Doe are singing the thong song is funny because they're harmonizing. And the reason that he doesn't just kill Anthony Mackie's character is because Mackie likes that song and is singing it with him. So he's like, oh, okay, you're hitting the notes right. All right, you can live and you can watch my show. It's ridiculous. And they go through the entirety of the song. I mean, it is ridiculous. But it works. It works really well. So I had a fun time with it. You might enjoy it if you ever get the chance to watch it. Unfortunately, it's only on Peacock. So I think it's on YouTube, though.
The Peacock, yeah.
Yeah, that's the downside. But I would say for most people, I like the fact that it didn't try to do too much with it. It just went with the absurdity of the premise. And it pays off. Now, it'll probably get canceled, so it'll also be for nothing. But if it doesn't, I would definitely... And they're only 30-minute episodes, so it's short.
Yeah, Anthony Mackie, he was... I worry that he's like the kiss of death for a TV series. Like, he's a great actor, and I like him, but... I think this is, if this gets canceled, I think this will be like the third series he's been in, because he jumped on, didn't he jump on the what do you call it? Oh, Jesus Christ, the Richard K. Morgan series that I didn't want to watch, Altered Carbon. Did he jump on the Altered Carbon series and they canceled it?
Well, he was the body of the second one, but that was always that one was always going to get canceled.
Oh no, I know, but what I mean is it's the bad luck. It's not him. It's not Anthony Mackie, but like, I think there's another series. Hold on,
well, I think what protects him, sorry, I swallowed wrong, is that universally, even in the shows that people don't like, even this one, the negative reviews made a very specific point to say he's the best thing in it.
Oh yeah, no, Anthony Mackie's great.
Yeah, so I don't know that's a case of
think,
I mean,
I think this. I can't remember.
This one has a high likelihood of getting canceled.
I thought there was 2 series that got canceled that he was the lead in. I can't remember. Either way, I like Anthony Mackie. Honestly, I'm quite curious to see what they're going to do with his Captain America, like the Falcon America, whatever way you want to call it. And I like the fact that he's willing to do kind of whatever roles. I mean, he, because he also did that. Have you seen that movie where he's a cyborg?
The movie where I guess I must not have. Which movie?
Yeah, I think he did it it's either for Netflix or for Prime, where he plays a cyborg and he's like behind enemy lines, basically like being a soldier.
Oh, I didn't see it, but I know what you mean now. Yeah, I think
it's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie, and he's fun in it. And it's like, he's one of those actors who has a way of handling himself where it's not too serious. You know what I mean?
Well, this is a perfect showcase for his comedy. He's really good because
he's honestly, Anthony Mackie would make a great Jack Burton.
Oh yeah.
When I think about actors who could be in a reboot, if you did like a real reboot,
sure,
not like the what's his name, who's rebooting it,
The Rock.
The Rock, yeah, The Rock is not Jack Burton, but Anthony Mackie could be a Jack Burton because he's funny. But he's like physical enough, but he doesn't look like he's gonna kick everyone's ass in the room. You know what I mean? Like,
no, he's ripped, but he's not a mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's part of why Sweet Tooth is played by a wrestler, because he does look like you could probably stick a knife in him, and if he burped right, it would fly out.
Oh,
like he's a big tank guy.
He's Samoan Joe or something like that.
That's the character.
Samoan
yeah,
wrestler.
That's the guy's name. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Is he's big. So I think that's the idea. Is he's just so physically powerful that he overpowers everybody. I mean, he throws people around and just beheads people left and right. So he's clearly supposed to be very physically tough. Now, here's an example of something that I like about the series. This is a running gag. So in the opening, when they bring him into New San Francisco, in the first or second episode, I don't remember. I think it was the first episode. They bring him in, and Nev Campbell puts on this show for him, which you find out was all artificial as a way to make him, think that she's nice and down to earth. Like she hires a fake husband and a fake baby. And she invites him over to their apartment, and they cook him dinner, and then the guy says, "Okay," because she says, "Oh, well, how about dessert?" And he says, the husband says something about
the fake husband.
The fake husband says something like, "Oh," he's like, Jell-O," and Anthony Mackie thinks that Jell-O is some type of greeting, so he says, "Oh, Jell-O to you," and they kind of look at him funny, but they think he must be just being a smartass. But you as the viewer know that he really doesn't know what Jell-O is because he's lived on the road. And so they don't eat Jell-O. There is no Jell-O. And so then he brings it out. And Anthony Mackie never makes the connection that Jell-O is the dessert because they never say the word again. So throughout the rest of the series until I think the 8th or 9th episode, that's how he says goodbye to people. So they'll be like, Jell-O. And, he says it constantly. And everybody looks at him like he's a maniac. And everybody just thinks he's being a dick. And they don't understand that he doesn't know what the word means. And then there's a point where Quiet says, because he says something, somebody's driving away. He's like, Jell-O. And she's like, why do you keep saying that? And he's like, what do you mean? It's goodbye. And she's like, no, it's not. It's a dessert. He says, oh, it's a dessert. Like, I think that shit's funny. Because they don't overdo it. They think that it's because he's a wise ass, which he is. They play him just, not scummy, but they play him on the edge enough. There's times where he's very sarcastic. So it's reasonable that somebody observing him would think there was some kind of inside baseball wise ass sarcasm to him saying that. And then finally Quiet's the one who realizes that no, he doesn't know what it means. And so she explains it to him. And so it's a funny gag because it goes on way longer than I thought it would. I was really sure that would get explained quicker. But they don't. They let it run. And it is funny because they don't do it constantly. But every so often he'll be like, hey, Jell-O. And it's like, oh, yeah, the Jell-O thing. Right. Shit like that.
You know what? I want to do that now.
Yeah. Oh, it was funny. Like I said.
I'm curious as to who's running the show.
Well, I know Will Arnett, I think, is an executive producer. You can look it up. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see who the... let's see.
Like I said, I like it. I don't know since it's on Peacock. It's going to have a limited audience, which sucks.
Oh, that's so cute. in John Doe's flashback scenes, it's played by Anthony Mackie's son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I read that.
I'm just looking,
I did read that.
I'm just looking to see who the showrunners are, which they don't have. They have the stars, but they don't have the.
Yeah.
Hold on, look at the cast.
I just closed the damn page with it too.
Let's see. The series is directed by.
There were different ones.
Yeah, I was going to see who the showrunner is. It doesn't say. Hold on. I'm just going to ask the internet. What do the Intertobes have to say?
Yeah, I'll ask the Intertubes. Who's the showrunner for Twisted Metal?
Let's see. Executive producer is Michael Jonathan Smith. That means nothing to me.
That means nothing. Hold on, let me see.
So the announced, it's Will Arnett, Rhett Reese, Michael Jonathan Smith, and Paul Wernick.
Okay.
Which I don't know who those people are. I know that Will Arnett.
Well,
Will Arnett is.
Yeah, I know him. Rhett Reese
did
filmography. Oh, he was a. Let's see. He was exec producer. Oh, he wrote a lot of stuff. Hold on, I have to cough for a minute.
Coughing.
Woo! I came out of nowhere. He wrote Monsters Inc., Zombieland, Deadpool 2,
shit.
and Deadpool 3. So he's okay.
So he knows what he's doing.
Yes. Okay. Yes, and he is a writer, producer, and creator of the series. That's one of the people. So that.
There you go. Yeah.
And then
the guy. Wernick? Okay, and the guy. What's his name?
Oh, Paul Wernick is his co-writer on all that stuff. Okay.
Michael Jonathan Smith is the he's the writer for Cobra Kai.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense to me then. Okay. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Like I said, really fun series. I hope it gets at least a second season. I dreaded it won't, but I had a good time with it. So I would say, especially as video game adaptations go, there we go. It's one of the better ones I've ever seen, and I had a lot of fun with it. Don't expect any more from that because you shouldn't, because it's Twisted Metal. So.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Is that? I just realized something. Oh, that's very funny. The girl who plays Quiet, she's one of the leads from
she's in Brooklyn Nine-Nine too.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And she's General Mayhem from Lego Movie 2.
Oh, well, there you go. So,
I wasn't expecting that at all. So surprised the fuck out of me.
I was very happy.
Now I'm curious to see it.
Yeah.
Well done.
So I went from that. I gotta tell you, buying these four movies sight unseen. No, I didn't watch that. I watched something I'm sure better.
You watched more of the Polish movie.
This is the
I look forward to these reviews.
Movie set that I've ever bought sight unseen at this point. Period. I can say that without any hesitation. I've never bought something knowing so little about it and been rewarded again and again and again. 3 out of 4. Even if the fourth one sucks, who cares? I don't think it will. So I watched the third movie chronologically in the series from Peter Solzinski, probably mispronounced that, called, it's a hell of a title, Oba, The End of Civilization. So O-BI, comma, O-BA, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, colon, The End of Civilization. So, and this, man,
Sounds like the beginning of a song.
It does. So, movie starts out, we get flashes, I kind of watched Oppenheimer, of nuclear weapons going off. And it's, file footage. And we get a overlaid voiceover saying that there was nuclear war, and as a result of the war, there's a heavy degree of radioactive fallout. It's never specified where this is, but everything is in English that you see written. So again, you have to think, doesn't mean anything, just saying that it's very, wherever. And as a result of the fallout, the decision was made by someone, we don't really know who, but basically a concrete dome was constructed to shield the survivors until such time as the fallout either dispersed or they were rescued. So it certainly sounds like the entire world didn't go up, possibly. We never really know, but essentially that's what it lays out, and that is then, I'm pretty sure, supposed to be voiceover by the main character, who it's very unclear what the people, quote, in charge, who they really are. because they talk about the fact that he's a master of persuasion and has some type of psychological or psychology training or psychiatric training, something. They never specify, but something where he's somebody that they want to talk to people to persuade them to figure out what's going on. He's almost some kind of psychology investigator type, almost like a forensic psychologist, I guess. And so you find out that it's a year after the dome has been built. Even that is somewhat questionable because the first thing he says when the movie starts is, "It's been a year, I guess." So that may or may not be true because, of course, when there is no day or night cycle, you lose track of days, so it's hard to say.
Oh, yeah. So does the dome, is it blacked out the sky?
Well, there's all neon lights, but you see nothing of the outside. It's literally like a black sphere around them. You don't ever see it from the outside, but you never see, and there is only there is no sunlight. There's no skylight. There's no nothing that has an outside light because it's all radioactive fallout.
So is it all filmed at night?
Well, it's all filmed inside because it's interiors.
Okay.
So you only ever see concrete walls with neon artificial lighting. So
the dome is like a building.
Yeah, the movie takes place entirely inside it. You never see it. You're told that they're inside a dome, which is probably for budgetary reasons. But it looks like it's filmed in what's likely a power plant or something where it's just concrete corridors and big open spaces. That's all you ever see until the very, very, very end. But we'll get to that. And so this character's name is Soft. All these characters have interesting names. Soft, Empty, Craft, stuff like they've these very, very workshop-like names for the most part. And other characters that you don't see just don't have any names at all. So this individual, his boss or whatever, shows up and says, "I need you to find out who is planting these leaflets about what a group of people called the Boers, B-O-E-R. It's never explained who they are or whether they're even real. But the idea is they're in 1984, how there's the always war against whatever Pacific Landia or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I believe it's supposed to be that type of enemy that you're meant to always think that the people who are with you are helping to defend you against. Because there's a part in the opening where he says, the people that we defend hate us, and the word defend is in quotes. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of specific storytelling, right? And again, 1985, communist Poland, like there's stuff going on here.
Especially this guy, yeah, he's not
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Everything has intention.
Correct. So his boss says, "I want you to find who has these leaflets and try to and stop it, because it's if it keeps going, then we're gonna have to make an example of this guy." And then the boss says, "Boy, I wish we had some police around here," and then wanders off. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, they're not the police then, and they don't appear to be the military. So somehow these people are either, I think they were put in charge by somebody who's not there. That's my impression, but you don't really know. But everybody just, the most you ever see in terms of weapons is nightsticks. And they're wearing what looks like, extra, like surplus hockey gear. They're not even in body armor. So it's like, did somebody shove them in here and just say, watch these people until, whatever, and they just left? I don't know. It's never made clear. So Soft is going around, and his job is he basically goes around and talks to people and tries to work out what's going on for this guy that he works for, who's played by the same guy who played the main character in Gollum. This guy clearly likes that actor. A lot of actors from the other two movies show up in this. I recognized a lot of people. So he's wandering around, and he's kind of interrogating people, and you see that in the main, promenade of this dome, this big empty space, there's just a ton of people that are literally just milling about. They're just kind of standing there and shuffling back and forth, and they're all in like heavy tattered robes, and they're starving, and they're just not doing anything. And over the course of the film, what you find out is that there's really nothing for them to do. They literally just got shoved into this dome with no thought of what to do to occupy their time. So they literally just stand around, and they're waiting for something called the Ark, A-R-K. And as they're milling about, you hear this loudspeaker that says, "The Ark doesn't exist. Today is what you make of it. The Ark doesn't exist. Today is what," over and over on a loop the whole movie whenever they're in this space. But interestingly, when Soft talks to a young child who sits near one of these loudspeakers, he says something about, "I don't care about the Ark." The child says it, and Soft says, "Oh, so you don't believe the Ark exists?" And he says, Well, it has to exist because the speakers say it doesn't. Therefore, it must. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay, we're getting into fucking heavy territory here. This is like
I don't
ignorance
trust
is
the
strength
speakers.
type shit,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. And so Soft is going around, and he has a girlfriend who's a prostitute. And he goes into well, I guess the brothel is what it would be. It's kind of a bar/brothel where she works. And he's like, and he seems to be, throughout the whole movie, the only person who feels like he has to get out of this place. Everybody else just seems to accept that they're stuck there. But he is actively begins to really try to want to get out. He says to her, why don't we just leave? And she's like, well, go where? And he's like, I don't know. I'll find someplace where we're away from all these people. And he's like, and he says, I don't want you doing this.
But isn't there still radiation outside?
Well, there is. That's the thing. Is outside it is minus 30 degrees, and radiation will kill you within a space of a few hours. So that's why when she's saying, well, where will we go? But he's just at a point of misery of where he is. And he says, I don't want you doing this anymore. I don't want you, selling your body. And she's like, look. She's like, I sell my body, you sell your mind to them. It's the same difference. She's like, yeah, right? That's what I'm saying. It's fucking guys' movies, man. I dig them. So she says
that is a pretty effective line. Yeah,
it is. And she basically shuts him down. There's nothing to say after that. She's like, once we get out of here, I'm only for you. But this is how we have money and how I can survive. So I've got to keep doing this. And he basically, accepts it because, this is clearly an argument they've had many times. It's being made for us now as the viewer. So he leaves and, he's got all these things where he figures out who's got the leaflets or is secretly planting these leaflets and says, be more creative with it. When you plant the leaflet on this guy, because he says, why are you doing this? Do you care about this person? You don't want to, why do you keep doing this to, rile him up? And he's like, oh, no. He's like, I don't give a shit about him, but he's a really good chess partner. So I get him riled up so that he'll play chess really well against me. And he's like, well, if you keep doing this, they're going to kill him. And the guy's like, well, I want to keep him all riled up and engaged in the game, but I don't want him to die because I don't have a chess partner. I mean, it's that level of I don't give a fuck about this person except they play chess against me. That's it. Literally the only caring he has. And he's like, okay, fine. He's like, keep planting the leaflets, but put something in there about his wife and adultery or whatever, and then he'll be ashamed to show them to anybody. So he'll still be riled up, but at least then he won't show anybody, and you've taken this headache off me. So he's a clever guy. Like, it immediately gets you the idea that he is smarter than most of the people he's encountering.
Well, he's clever, and that's the problem, isn't it?
Right. So,
yeah.
As time goes on, it becomes very clear that he knows that the Ark is made up. And in fact, he has this discussion with someone where he's like, because he brings this person in because it's reported to them that the Ark is having a engineering problem that if it's not addressed, that the Ark will have some type of collapse. And that's where they're talking about, if we're exposed to the outside, that's it. And so he brings this engineer guy in and he says, hey, you've been identified as an engineer and we need you to, fix this thing. And the guy's like, no. And he says, what do you mean no? He says, no, I'm not going to fix it. And he's like, why? He says, because why fix it? He's like, it's hell out there. What does it matter if we die now or we die later? Why should I fix it? There's no point. It's just prolonging suicide. What would I do that for? And he says,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so the engineer says, I recognize you. You're one of those people who run around preaching all the spiritual stuff. You looked a lot more, he said, you looked a lot more, I don't know, he says he looked more like a priest or something there. He's like, well, yeah. He's like, well, we realized that the only way to get people to come here, we tried reason. That didn't work. So we had to appeal to myth and spirituality because that's what moves people. Oh, yeah. The shit's fucking great. Yeah, it's fucking great. So he says, yeah. So we basically had to lie to them and we had to tell them there was an Ark because they know what that means. And if they believe that something will come and save them, then it keeps them from being lethargic and falling into torpor. I mean, they use the word torpor.
Torpor, yeah. It's basically, there's a lot of Universe 25 here, isn't there?
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I love these fucking movies. So he's going back and forth. The engineer's like, no, I'm not doing it. And the Soft says to him, if you don't do anything, you're going to get rid of the only barrier between us and the hell that is outside. And the engineer says, if it's hell outside, what's the difference if it cracks and crumbles now or later? And then just leaves. I'm like, holy shit, this is fucking intense, right? So it's going along, and like he's miserable because he has no leverage on the guy. The guy has nobody, and he's basically got a death wish. So how do you How do you make someone do something if they don't care about anything and they're basically longing for death? You have no leverage on them.
Well, you offer to kill them?
No, well, they can't do that because he wants the dome. He's basically saying, well, you find out later that he tells, because Soft catches up to him when he's down in basically where they put the dead bodies, even if they're not dead yet. He's like, if they're sick, like he's talking to the guy who's basically runs the morgue, and the guy hands him a sticker that says death certificate. He says, hey, if that guy dies, just put this on his face for me. He probably will, and just walks away. And he's like, I don't even know why I'm sorting the bodies. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. And what you find out is that there were originally 2,000 people. Now there's about 850. Because they're just dying off from boredom and stagnation and having no hope. They're just dying. And so the boss is really concerned about trying to do something because he's like, we have to get them motivated. Otherwise, there'll be nobody left and we're all just going to die in here. But even Soft is like, what are we holding out this area for? What is this for? And so he goes down and finds, this is later in the movie, but I'm skipping ahead a little bit. The engineer tells him, oh yeah, I couldn't save this dome if I wanted to. They only built it to last a year. So it's going to crumble because they didn't care. He's like, nothing will save it. But that's at the end of the movie. So this is all for nothing, you find out eventually. But in the meantime, Soft kind of thinks about the fact that the spiritual thing worked and says, you know what? I wonder if I can get a Bible and I can start getting people into, the Bible again. And that will stir them out of their lethargy. So he goes, and during the movie, you see at points, you remember in Fury Road where he turned on the water and they all crowded for the water and then they turned it off?
Yeah.
All right. There's something similar in here, except it never turns off. People are all crowded around this chute that comes out of the ceiling, and it's dropping what looks like just big batches of flour that they're catching and kind of just shoving in their mouths.
Coke?
And it
They just have a ton of Coke?
No, it's not Coke. You find out what it is. So he goes to the person who runs the book depository, essentially, a library for the whole place. And he says, hey, I'm looking for the Bible. And the guy's like, we don't have the Bible. He's like, well, what are all these books? And he's like, all these books are just books about the Boers. We keep them so that everybody's reminded why we're here. Everything else we got rid of. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, they came in and they said, if it's not about the Boers, get rid of it. He's like, well, how did you get rid of it? He says, well, I bring it to this guy that works up in the, the upper floors or whatever. He's like, all right, fine. And he goes and he finds that guy, and that guy is sitting there over these giant grinding tanks where there's like liquid in them of some kind. It looks like it's almost concrete, but it's more swirly, more liquidy. And he's just kicking books into it. And the guy says, well, what are you doing to these books? And he's like, ground up celluloid is really good filler. It makes you think you're full, so you just keep eating it. They're feeding them shredded books that have been ground into a flour-like material. I'm telling you, this fucking movie's great. So he's like, do you happen to have a Bible? And he's like, oh, Bible. Yeah, I kept one because it was leather bound, and I thought it was a shame to just grind it up. So he goes over and he takes it down, and he hands it to him, and he opens it up, and it's literally just the leather binding of the cover. He's like, where's the pages? He's like, well, I ground the pages. Who gives a shit? He's like, but that cover is really nice. He's like, I'll give you some paper. You can shove it in there. You tell him whatever you want. And, of course, that completely defeats the point because he wanted to read the book.
Words, yeah.
So he just throws the leather thing into the grinder to be ground up with everything else. And you see the Bible getting ground up, and I'm like, holy fuck, man, this fucking movie. So there's this guy who in the beginning of the movie kept telling him, hey man, there's something I want to show you. I'm going to show it to just you because you're the only person I trust. And he's like, okay. He's like, I got stuff to do. I'll come find you in the afternoon. So after he finds the grinder and all this stuff, he goes to see his girlfriend, and his girlfriend lives with these really rich people, rich for this thing because they can afford to build their whatever this is in the dome out of real wood. So it even implies that there's like a Blade Runner kind of, scarcity to natural resources. But because they were so rich, they could build their entire flat out of wood. So she takes him up there and she's got a little room and they're like, yeah, they rent it to me for nothing because they think I'm amusing and I'm colorful and they like to keep me around. And so they're in the room and he's kind of in despair about, I've got to get you out of here and we've got to get out of this place. And she's like, well, again, go where? Where's there to go? We can't leave. And he's like, well, there's got to be someplace even in the dome that we can go. And then he catches the sight of something out of his eye, and he opens up her shutters, which overlook this big empty space over the floor of the dome where all the people are milling about all the time. And they've got these high wires, and there are other prostitutes that are practicing wire walking. And he's like, what is this? What are they doing? And she said, well, when the Ark shows up, it's almost a sure thing that there's going to be a crowd rushing to get to it. So if we learn how to wire walk, then we can walk over the crowd and get to the Ark faster. And that way we don't have to be down there with them and we don't risk getting crushed. Right? Which has it has a logic to it. I went, oh yeah,
it's just the endless amount of metaphor he's just like throwing at you. Okay.
Right. So he says, okay, and he leaves. And he goes, and the guy catches up to him and says, hey, I want to show you that thing that I've been meaning to show you. And he's like, all right, fine, show me. And he takes him to the secret spot in the dome that's behind like this heavy metal door, and he takes him down, and he says, here, you're going to need a scarf and some clothing because it's cold. And he's like, okay, and he puts it all on. And they go down into this room. And when they get into the room, the Soft looks around, and he's like, okay, what is this? And he's like, and the guy, I don't even think the guy has a name, but the guy says, well, look, here's what it is. He's like, if the Ark doesn't show up, then there's a good chance the dome's going to crumble. And you can't survive outside of the dome. So I essentially built an interior bomb shelter that's a fridge. And I've been stockpiling food. And that way you and I can stay down here and we can survive till the Ark shows up. And Soft is looking around. He's like, you built a fridge? He's like, yeah, it'll protect us from the fallout because the walls are thick and it's behind a couple of metal doors. He's like I said, I've got food, and I've even got women. And he goes over and pulls his curtain aside, and he says, here are a couple of my favorite women. I'll thaw them out when it's just you and I in here. And it's 2 women who are dead, frozen, naked.
Oh, God.
And Soft is like, holy shit. And then the guy kneels down in front of this little model of what looks like a biblical ark that he's built that has like a little jack-in-the-box crank on it. And when he cranks it, it rings some bells and little wings pop out. He must have killed a bird and built these wings into it that open up. And he's like, Ark, come and save us and take us away. And Soft just kind of backs away from him and locks him in there and just shuts the door and pulls everything off it to just leave him to die. Because he's like, this dude is a fucking maniac. And just leaves him in there. Right? Right. So, and now Soft is becoming more and more despondent because he is surrounded by lunatics. There's no books. He can't figure out a way to get people to not be these basically zombies who are just waiting to die. And then it's very Universe 25. You know what?
Yeah. What's the name of this movie?
Oba, The End of Civilization. Look for a picture of a skull with lipstick on it or lip marks on the teeth.
O-bi,
O-bi, comma, O-ba. You just do that, you'll find it. Right?
And what is the rest of it?
The End of Civilization. Yeah, cheery title.
Okay,
so as he's interrogating people, he hears that there's a secret hangar within the dome that has a plane in it. Right? And he's like, really? Okay, I have to find this hangar. Now, in between all this...
And why would other people not know about it?
Well, I mean, he basically almost kills a guy to find out. So apparently it is a well-guarded secret. But during the movie, there's points where they're showing how the economy works. And the way it works is at one point he takes some silverware that's silver, literal silverware. I think it's 2 forks and a spoon. He takes it to a guy and trades the spoons for food. And then the guy makes the currency out of that silver. So he trades in the silver and they make these little pieces of metal that they call arcs because the only currency that's accepted is that which is in the form of the thing that's going to save them. So even if you have a precious metal, they don't care. They want these little, I don't even know how, they look like little triangles with holes punched in them of metal. And that's the currency. And again, the whole thing about I only accept arcs. They're called arcs because they refer to our great savior that's coming. It's like even the economy is tied into religion. You know what I mean? It's like metaphors on metaphors on metaphors on metaphors. So there's a point where, so he finds out about the hangar. He goes to the hangar and finds a guy in there who is, so there is a plane and it is in the hangar. And the guy says, yeah, but the plane's all ripped apart. And the guy's like, you're not going to fly that anywhere. And basically what you find out is that he rips pieces of metal off the plane and makes the currency. And it doesn't really matter if it's silver or not. That's just another myth they've spread around that everything is made of silver. He's like, they don't know. They don't care. I just make it out of this. I am the economy. I just make it up. He's like, I just stamp this metal. I tell them it's silver. How the fuck do they know it's silver or not? So he's like, I run the money here. I'm the king of this place. I'm like, holy shit. right? So Soft starts beating the fuck out of him because he realizes that the one thing he thought was a way out, which was the hangar in the plane, he's not going to be able to get anywhere. Number one, it's a giant like Boeing thing, not a little. It's the way I think the audience and the character just automatically assume that it's a little plane that he might be able to figure out how to fly, but it's not. It's a giant airliner, which you can't just fly if you don't know how to. There's no indication he knows how to fly a plane. But still, I think it was the idea that there was a way out, and now it's completely gone. There is no plane. There is no way out. And as he's beating the guy to death, he stops at one point, and the guy's bleeding, and he says, "Where would you go anyway? Do you even know where you would fly to? What would you do?" And Soft has no answer because he doesn't know where he would go. He doesn't know if there's a world out there. And he says, not only that, that plane might be able to carry 200 people, and there's just short of 1,000 still here. Are you going to do a lottery? Are you just going to leave them? Is it just going to be you and a couple of people you care about? You think you're better than me? Have you even considered what the morality of leaving on that plane would be? How would you do it? And Soft basically just kind of gets dejected, and his shoulders fall, and he leaves, and he goes, and he grabs his stuff. And I really don't know what the intent is for him at this point. I really don't, because every means of escape is gone.
I mean, it's a dark fucking movie at this point.
Well, it is, but it doesn't feel like it's a suicide. It doesn't feel that way. Because he goes to get the girlfriend with his stuff as if they're going to leave. Because at one point he had said something about there are places in the dome where there just aren't people, and can it just be us somewhere? So I think that's the idea. Is he just wants to
my question
her.
For that is like, where do you get food then?
Well, I think the idea is that he's got stuff. He has a bag with stuff in it. So I think his idea is if we're going to die, let's die together, which I understand. That makes sense. That's what I think it is. But we're never explicitly told. So you can read whatever you want into what was going to happen. But he goes to get the girlfriend, and he goes up to her room, and he looks around. She's not there. And then he sees that the shutters are open, and she's out there practicing, and she waves at him, at which point she falls off the wire.
Of course, right? She falls.
And hits the floor.
Yep.
You assume dead, but we don't know for sure. But I mean, she fell pretty far, and you see her body laying there. But all the people are just kind of shuffling past her, so you don't really know. So then, he doesn't know what to do. He's kind of wandering around with his bag, and he runs into the kid that he talked to earlier. And he says to the kid, he's like, the kid's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, I'm trying to find a way out of here." And he's like, "Well, even if you find a way out of here, where are you going to go?" And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Well, I just want to get out of here too, so take me with you." And he's like, "Well, I don't really even know where I'm going yet, so I can't take you yet." And he's like, "Well, come back for me." And he's like, "All right, I will." And he's like, "Well, how do I know you will?" And he's like, "Here's my bag. I will come back for this. That way I'm not lying to you. Once I figure out something, I'll come back and I'll get you, and we'll go wherever it is. We can get out of here." Just to try, I think at that point, he's like, "Can I get one person and save them? One person in this whole fucking mess. Can I stop from being like everybody else?" At which point, there's a huge boom, and the outside of the dome, there's a huge crack, and part of it collapses in. You see this huge light from outside. And everybody just starts going towards it. Like exactly what the woman was talking about. They all start crowding. They're stampeding over each other. The kid gets killed. He's trying to avoid getting killed. They're all just rushing with their hands up towards this light. And I'm like, okay, I've watched the other two movies for this guy. So is this going to be that they all go into the light, it fills the screen,
and they all die outside?
Or you don't know. You don't know what happens, right? Because it's even though they say the arc is fake, there's also this thing about spirituality and there's all this stuff. So
it's what the kid says. They say the arc doesn't exist, therefore it
must. Right. Yeah. So will it actually be real? So he gets to the light and everything goes white, and I'm like, oh shit. But then we see him outside. He comes out and he's outside the dome. It's all snowed over, so it is frozen, and he's got his bag. So he got the bag off the body of the kid. He gets out. Interestingly, he's all by himself. There's no one else there. He's out in the snow, and he's wandering around, and he looks up, and he sees not an arc, but a hot air balloon. A hot air balloon with one person in it. And when he looks close, it's the girlfriend, and she's waving to him.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Yep. This is the interesting bit, because I think you're right, but there's an extra layer to it. So she throws down a ladder to him, and he climbs up the ladder, and he kisses her. And then the two of them look over the side and they see a person on the ground. And when it zooms in, it's him. So the him on the balloon takes off his bag and throws it down to the other him. And the other him kind of waves and smiles, and the two of them float off, and then the screen fades to white. So, is it his spirit leaving his dead body in the snow?
That would be his. Yeah, it feels like his spirit leaving his body.
Yeah. Right?
It's the reality versus the fantasy. So the reality is that he is out in the snow by himself with his bag. But the fantasy is that he's flown away with the woman he loves.
Right. I read another interpretation that said that was his fantasy leaving him, his realization that there is no escape from the world as it is. So he will die out in the snow, but what he saw was the last illusions of his dream of escaping going away. Which, sure. I mean, either way, he's going to be dead. It's whether he's dead right then or dead later.
How dark do we want to get? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's the movie.
Well,
it's fucking great.
It's like that. It's the Brazil. It's the
Yes.
Brazil ending, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean,
Potentially.
to some degree, Terry Gilliam was watching movies like this because I'm sure I'm pretty sure this predates Brazil, doesn't it?
85. Brazil was what, 90 something? I think so. Brazil.
Yeah, I can see Terry Gilliam having
89, maybe it was
seen
89.
these movies.
No, same year, 85.
No way.
Yes, same year.
The same year?
Yeah, I think.
So, yeah, you know what? So, basically what you're telling me is some shit was going on that vibrated two people in a very similar way.
Yeah, hold on. I want to just check the year.
Oh,
85.
right,
Yes, 85. Same year.
They both came out the same year.
Same year.
That's creepy.
Yeah, right?
Well, something was going on, man. Something that year.
I'm telling you.
Or building up to that year. Something,
Yeah.
because those are similar messages. I mean, the end of Brazil and the end of this movie are in line. You know what the only difference is? This is the only difference is. All right. And so Terry Gilliam is American. So
Correct.
Terry Gilliam's version of it is that Lowry basically gets to escape into his illusion and his body is left behind.
Sure.
Right? Whereas this is the version of somebody on the other side of the Iron Curtain,
Right.
who basically watches their fantasy fly away and is left behind to die.
Yeah.
How is that for an altering point of view of what side you were of the Iron Curtain?
Yeah.
So, yeah, intense. I mean, there's a fourth movie?
Yes, the fourth movie is called Gaga, the Blood of Heroes, I think. Is it Gaga, Blood of Heroes, I think?
The last one is called Shit is Fucked All Over.
Gaga, Glory to the Heroes, 86. So, I don't know what it's going to be, but I can't wait to watch it. Yeah. So, like I said, for a director, writer I've never heard of, for a set of movies I've never heard of, 3 out of 4 so far are just, and they haven't let up, which is great. I love the fact, and they're not, I mean, they're obviously not happy movies, but they're not misery movies. You know what I mean? It's not like it's so overwhelmingly, I don't know. I mean, it is when you think about what it is, but there's something about it that.
Oh, no, dude. Listen, they're miserable. They are miserable. You're just beyond that because you're looking at the art film aspect of it.
And I think they have that Terry Gilliam kind of slight unreality to them, which also softens the blow.
But
it's not
they
Leaving
are
Las
miserable.
Vegas. You know, Leaving Las Vegas is fucking miserable. Like, it's miserable because it's very, very possible that these
movies very much remind me of Philip K. Dick books, where it's like there's a lot of his stories where there was never a way out in the first place.
Right.
And that's what this is. This is a whole, you're in a shitty situation that was set up incorrectly, and there was never a way out.
Right. Peace was never an option.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can't even imagine what the next one's going to be.
Well, you know what? As a bit of a prep, let's see what the synopsis is. Hold on a minute. All right. Gaga, glory to the heroes. What is the synopsis? Let me take a look. The cover art is baffling. Okay, the one sentence one is, in the 21st century, prisoners aboard a penitentiary spaceship explore unknown worlds. All right, here's the longer
That
longer
can
one.
go wrong in so many ways.
Our main character lands on a supposedly uninhabited strange new world where he is greeted as a hero and treated as royalty. He soon finds out that heroism has a price. He has to commit a crime so that he may be publicly executed in a glorious ceremony. And the first review's headline is Demented Black Comedy Sci-Fi Satire from Poland of all places. So, yeah, this is going to be the same thing. This feels almost like it's connected directly to the second movie, where the guy was executed, sort of, maybe, who knows. Whatever. I'm sure I'm going to love it. Because here's the other thing, too. And I mentioned this, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in at least the first one, maybe the second one. These movies are visually very well done on top of the narrative. They're beautiful movies in the way that they depict the worlds that they take place in. I don't know where this was filmed, but at no point does it not look like a dome that was hastily constructed to let people just barely survive a nuclear holocaust. It looks every bit a real thing.
You know what it makes me think of? And I haven't seen it, but you're making me think of Alien 3.
Yes,
Alien 3
actually,
is
that's
very
a very
much
good analog. Yes,
like when you watch the rough cut, the proper cut of the movie. Yeah, it's this idea that it's not about whether you're going to get out. You were never going to get out. It's how you handle being there.
Right, and if you cut out any of the exterior stuff from Alien 3, it looks a lot like that, except it's blue instead of that yellow-green, oh God, pustules have exploded look.
Where did they film Alien 3, I wonder?
Oh, I think they've said. Let's see. Where did they?
It's like probably like some sort of old plant of some kind.
Yeah, I mean that's what this looks like. It was
especially for those like those big subterranean scenes where it's like these giant tunnels.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I don't think they built all that. So
let's see. Here we go. Development scripts. I don't care about scripts. Where is filming? Pinewood Studios. Majority of the film was shot at Pinewood. Some were shot at a power station, Blythe Power Station, which is in northern New England. Whoa.
Interesting.
American. Yeah. Blythe Power Station. Refers to a pair of now demolished coal-fired power stations that were located in northeast England. Sorry, not New England. Northeast England. Okay. Yeah, they were twin power stations built alongside each other on a riverbank. Interesting. That must be where they filmed the outsides. Huh. Yeah. Interesting. That makes sense. And this was probably the same thing. This is probably either an old nuclear reactor or something like that. Beautifully filmed, though. Very claustrophobic, a lot of interior spaces, all artificial light, which allows him to control the light, which is great because the shots, I don't know, I would love for you to see just the visual of when they leave the dome.
Well, I saw some photos, and the photos look very, almost like steampunk Terry Gilliam.
Yeah, kind of. Okay, here it is. I'll skip to the part. But this, it's funny you say Alien 3, too, because the end of this reminded me so much of David Fincher in the way that it's... Okay, here it is. Let's see. Where's that big over... Yeah, okay. All right. Where is it when... This is where the dome cracks. All right. Go. Hopefully this takes... If it isn't, it's at 1:19. The whole movie is online. The problem is it has English subtitles, so you can watch it online, everybody. So I just sent you the link. So that should be at about an hour, 19 and 25 seconds. And just watch as the people are...
Hold on. I got to move that Skype slider that we were talking about.
Yeah, move that slider, which you can turn off. You can turn that off.
All right, so 1:19
and 25 seconds. Go to that and just watch it for about 10 seconds and look at the image of the people going towards the light in the wall. First it starts close, but then it moves out. And it looks like a Fincher shot or like Ridley Scott. Like it's so beautifully done. It's this really wonderful big shot of all these people that I was talking about, all the people that were milling about at the bottom of the thing. Who, in most of those shots, all had their heads hooded. And now in all these shots, almost all of them, their faces are exposed. So again, are they just walking into death? Probably. I don't know, because you don't see him after this. But
Well,
if you
it's
look at the shots,
religious belief will have you walk right into the afterlife, right?
yeah, you see them all going into that wide,
Yeah.
the white. That's a beautiful shot. Because I'm watching it on a Blu-ray. It's magnificent looking. And this is at this point, this is 7 minutes or so before the movie ends. This is the first time you see anything outside of the stock footage of the nuclear blast. That's it. So it's beautiful. On top of the fact that I love the story and everything going on in it, it's beautifully shot. So he's just getting better.
It's very Brazil. The
Yeah, it's
balloon and
great,
everything
isn't
is
it?
Very Brazil,
it's just
yeah.
fucking beautiful. And very limited color palette. It's mostly blues. There's a little bit of neon with pinks and stuff, but it's mostly that blue and kind of green coloring, which all just, like I said, the print I'm seeing is so much in better quality than this YouTube video, so it's so much better. But that's, like I said, it's not just that it's an intelligent story, because that's half of it, but the visuals are all excellent too. And they've just gotten better every movie. So I can't imagine now that he's going into space. I mean, it probably won't be in space much. It probably will be mostly in small locations, but I don't care. They're still filmed so well. It doesn't matter. So
It also makes me think of Stalker.
yes, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. These movies had me right from the first one.
Yeah.
And everyone has delivered. Even like I said, if the last one somehow sucks, I can't imagine it does, because they were made in such a tight 5-year span, basically 5-6 year span. Somebody usually doesn't go off the rails that quick.
Did he stop making movies? Or did he die?
You know, I think it was a case where he never made anything quite like this. Let's see. Peter Zolkin was... Oh, no, he died pretty late. He died only 5 or 6 years ago,
So
in 2018.
did he just stop?
He directed only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He only directed 10 films. Yeah, it doesn't say.
So what happened after he did these?
Well, apparently he became a professor. I guess he went the Peter Weller route. He did movies, and then he became a professor at a national film school.
Well, he got tired of it. He made his movies. He made what he wanted to make.
Well, I mean, and I actually probably will watch one of these later films because I'm curious. But these are after the fall of communism. Oh, but you know what? Femina, which is 1990, is about a woman recalling her childhood that is torn. The ideologies of Catholicism and communism. That sounds like a fun time. Holy shit. So I probably will watch one of the later ones as a comparison point, because it was 5 years later. So he made Gaga, Glory to the Heroes, and then there was 5 years before he made another movie. So I'm curious. But like I said, if these at least these 3 movies are so good that if he didn't make anything else, I would understand why he stopped, because they're so well done. And I'm just so thrilled that I knew nothing about these. And honestly bought them because I was expecting trashy Mad Max ripoffs. And instead I'm getting this shit. Because that's really what I thought. I looked at the cover. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a foreign ripoff series about Mad Max stuff. And I'm watching. I'm like, fuck, this is dense. Like, this is...
No,
like
instead you watch Twisted Metal, and then you watch this.
Right. Right. Yeah. But I'm glad, because this is really... I can recommend 2 things that are vastly different. If you've watched a lot of empty stuff and you want to go into something that's heady and
it is
serious.
A very strange post-apocalyptic show, though, because Dead Island 2 is a zombie outbreak, end of the world. Then you've got Twisted Metal, which is post after the end of the world.
Right,
and
but
then
funny.
You've got this flick, which is kind of a Brazil, and I keep mentioning Brazil because Brazil for a long time was one of Joe's favorite movies.
Oh, it still is. It's a great movie.
Like the fact that this is on par with that concept.
Well, also when you said Stalker, there is a lot of visual stuff that is very similar to Stalker. Stalker is far slower. That's the thing. All these movies are 90 minutes or less. So these movies are fast. I mean, this movie was halfway over, and I couldn't believe it.
And honestly, I hate to bring Joss Whedon into this, but speaking of the illusion thing, right? How we're saying like the Brazil ending with the American point of view versus the Polish point of view in the Cold War, right? You've never watched Angel, right?
I remember watching a couple of episodes because you said you liked it, but I mean, I didn't know.
I
didn't watch Buffy enough to watch it with any understanding.
So
you know,
I watched the whole show, and there was a thing about the final season of Angel is brutal, but there's a thing about that show where there's a main character who he had a great arc. He started out as a dorky, like uptight asshole, and by the end of the show, he became the the fighting wizard of the crew. He was kind of like the smart guy, and he used a mixture of guns and magic. Very neat character, Wesley. And he was in love with the nerdy girl, right? And in the final season, the nerdy girl basically gets infected with a elder god, and it's an awful episode. It is probably one of the most brutal episodes I've ever seen in the show, because it consumes her from the inside out and destroys her. And the only thing left is her physical form. And otherwise, she is essentially a confused elder god. Confused in that she doesn't know where she is. But she's an all-powerful, like she's a, a Superman level being, right? And the character of Wesley, who was in love with her, I mean, he's destroyed, but he's also can't let go of it because it still looks like the woman he loved, right? And so for the rest of the show, there's this weird thing where this elder god doesn't leave because she's kind of curious as to what's going on with them, and she doesn't know what she's doing, and there's still kind of like weird remnants of the person that she's consumed. And at one point in the show, when she begins to get kind of a fascination with the Wesley character, she says, I could turn into her whenever I want. Do you want me to turn into her? Would that make you less uncomfortable? And the character of Wesley's like, no. He's like, I don't want you to do that. He's like, because that would be an illusion and it would be a lie, right? But when the end of the show comes around, all of Angel's crew are basically sent out to destroy some big player in the demonic world, and that a lot of them are coming back. It's the end run, and Wesley finds the guy that he's supposed to defeat, and he's not powerful enough to defeat him, and the elder god shows up and helps him kill the person. But Wesley's already done. He's been stabbed. He's going to die. And as he's laying there dying, she says to him, do you want me to lie to you now? And he's like, yeah, I really would. And it's that whole thing of, it's the American mindset. It's all fucked anyway, so you might as well give me my fantasy. And so he gets to die with the woman that he loves, even though she's been gone now for most of the season. And it makes me think of this idea that, in this movie, this guy sees the woman that he wants to escape with, that the whole movie was about essentially him trying to escape with her. And once he lost her, it kind of lost its point. You know what I mean? And so he sees this fantasy, but rather than run off with her, it's kind of like he sees a part of himself run off with her, but it leaves the actual person behind to die. It's a very different kind of way to approach your fantasy. Your fantasy becomes such a much more remote thing to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just made me think of that sequence. There's always weird sequences from shows and movies that stay with you, and that was was something.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that something has a real message to it, some kind of theme that's trying to be conveyed, you're going to connect all those different things together.
Yeah, and that was Joss Whedon. All his villainy and strangeness aside, writing wise, Joss Whedon was always good at having very interesting moments in his work.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that was one of the things, the whole, lie to me.
Not all good writers are good people.
No, not all good artists
are
good
not
people.
all bad writers are bad people either.
That's
how it is. Ed Wood sounded like a really fun guy till the end.
Why? What happened to him in the end?
Oh, he was penniless and he became, he died as an alcoholic. He had a terrible end to his life. He was miserable. But when he was making his trash movies, he seemed to be having a blast because he didn't give a shit. John Waters makes terrible films, even of his own estimation, and yet he always seems to be having the best time of his life and seems to be a wonderfully amused person with the rock he walks around on. So
I saw this Buddhist thing that I thought was quite interesting on what is the point of life, like, why are we here type of thing. It's a good way to end the show, especially after all this, darkness. And it was a Buddhist that said the point of life is to have a pleasant life, regardless of what that definition is to you. Have a pleasant life and try to facilitate others that you care about to have a pleasant life.
Sure.
And he said that's not about being the best. It's not about being having everything. You know, honestly, I think he wanted to use the word content, but he was worried that there's a stigmata to that word, like you're letting yourself down. But I was like, yeah, you know what? Pleasant. Because pleasant isn't like, you know, it's not having everything. It's having enough. You know, and it's in a situation like this movie where you're stuck in this dome. You know, is there a way to have a pleasant life? Is there a way to have a pleasant life in the world of Brazil?
Yeah.
You know, you had a really good phrase to me. You said to me recently, because I had some low moments recently, and Joe texted me and was talking about how his baseline for reality, you know, where everything is good enough if I reach this one baseline. And that baseline, I've realized, tying into this Buddhist thing, is this idea of the pleasant life. It's like, what enables you to have your pleasant life? And what many of these characters in these movies are looking for is this pleasant life, to just have a pleasant life and live out your years in relative contentedness. You know, Lowry in Brazil, he really just wants to get away from the bureaucracy and be with the girl. You know, he has his fantasies, but all his fantasies are about escape. You know,
well, the character in Gollum joins the band and just goes off with the band as they go on parade. So
yeah,
gives
I mean,
up
this
the struggle
movie,
of what's going on and just goes.
All this guy'd want is to get away. He doesn't even know what that away is. He just wants to get his the woman he loves with and just go someplace together, just to live out their days in some level of pleasant contentedness till the end of times. You know what I mean? And that's really what you have to look for in your life. Not forward to, but look for in your life. Is try to make yourself content and try to just, you know, live with content, pleasant people, and don't be an asshole.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
So have a contented weekend watching one of the things that we've talked about, because
you have options.
You have lots of options, and in our opinion, they're all good ones. On that note, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.